So vindicated, but not outwardly.
Yeah, and I mean, not to other people that didn't get the vaccine. It was like, okay, cool. Like I don't want to say I was right, but I just glad that I trusted my intuition. So that's one of those things where I'm like learning how to trust my intuition, because it's usually right, like about everything. When I don't trust it, I end up in a bind. Like, so that for me that felt good to know that I like made the right choice based on my instincts. And like what I felt was like, man, this seems wrong.
Something feels off.
Yeah. So
you know what's interesting about that is throughout that whole time when it was really chaotic and everyone was pushing the shot and there was the branding of, oh, you don't care about grandma.
Oh, yeah. And you're a piece of crap because, you're putting everyone's lives at risk.
You were the problem with society.
Anti-vaxxer, and all that.
The anti-vaxxers still being thrown around.
Oh, I know.
Even locally.
Yeah, it's stupid. It's like freedom of choice. Whatever happened to that?
Yeah, that went out the window.
Yeah, it totally did. Yeah. And it was really random and weird how people got so like aggressive about it too. But
I was, during that whole time, because I was kind of like you, I was on the other end of it. I was almost hoping that I was wrong. Because the idea that I was right and all of these other people... It's
kind of scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I know. It just, for me, it didn't feel... I was like, well, whether you're right or wrong, I don't know, but I shouldn't be forced to have to do something. That's what it was for me. My whole, like, delineator was if I'm holding the hands of my loved ones as they're all, like, dying around me, then I'll take this shit seriously. But having that background with the vet tech thing and all that, and, like, knowing how vaccines are supposed to be, like, tested and how many years it can take to actually make a legitimate vaccine, I was just like, fuck that. Like, there were no studies. Like, that was the study. Now look at what we're seeing, So.
Yeah, meanwhile, the study that they did countered a lot of what the conditioning was around it.
Mm-hmm.
That, actually, it doesn't stop transmission at all. They didn't even test for
I think I saw like a little blurb of you talking with someone about
probably
that. The other night, I looked up a few things just to see what you've been up to. And I was like, I think we're going to have a very different conversation. Like, yeah, some of these, I'm like, dang. You had Tessa on, though. She's cool.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She's fun to talk to. Yeah, I've known her quite a long time.
Her YouTube channel is off the charts.
Oh,
Her videos are so cool, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, she makes canning videos. She has going to the farmer's market.
Yeah, I buy a lot of her
recipes.
chicken meat at the market. Yeah. She's cool. Yeah, she's
way cool.
About to have a baby, too.
Yeah.
She's like on bed rest now.
Yeah,
so
I can imagine.
I should look up her YouTube channel. That's something I kind of been thinking about doing, like as a new thing, like with all my extra time and energy. I know nothing about it, but
you could do it, especially with the academy. You could put up dog training tips.
That's what I'm thinking. It just gives people more of a direct like line to information, like from me, that's not having to like come to classes all the time. So we'll see.
You should do it.
Get through all this crap.
Is that what you would do? Is dog focused or kind of life focused?
Maybe like I'm always into throwing in a little life into the dog, but dog focused for sure. Yeah, I think it would be good for the clients, to have a place to go, because that's one of my biggest problems. People going online and looking up all kinds of different shit, and then asking me about it, and I'm like, just trust me.
Yeah, then they
listen
come to
me.
Isn't this what I'm supposed to do?
Isn't this? Well, this trainer says this. I'm like, oh boy.
That TikTok trainer's not right.
Mm-hmm. Or what you see, like a little 5-second blurb, isn't necessarily like going to be explained very well to you. So, yeah.
I have noticed there's been a huge kick around people changing up the food that they feed their dogs. At least adding water to kibble.
That's one of my topics I wanna talk about today, because I gotten huge into dog nutrition. That's just been a little thing I've started learning about how to do, like using the stories on my Instagram and stuff like that, and putting up like quick little things. So I notice there's a ton of people that's all they look at. They don't take time to read shit.
No.
So I've been starting to do that, and I'm getting a lot of people asking questions, being interested, and like, because I'll cook for the dogs a few days a week and share like what I put in there, and people are like really inspired and into it. I think that's one of the leading causes of like death in dogs is dog food. That's
what we were talking about last time is you were kind of thinking maybe that's why these dogs are getting sick is from the food. Yeah. And getting cancers and these diseases.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the information's out there now about it. That dog food is human food. It's just like
shocker,
low grade human food. Like, so that's when vets used to tell clients no human food. Like that they're just like programming their minds but that doesn't make any sense. Like at all, So yeah, that's been something I've been trying to incorporate into my classes, just like little bits here and there to clients. Like you can like give your dog real food and it's better for them. Even just adding water to the kibble is like a big deal.
I didn't know about the kibble.
Yeah, the kibble's like so dehydrated and dried out that you think about, like, some people complain all the time about how much their dogs drink water and how much they pee and stuff. And I'm like, well, it's probably because they're trying to process all that all that preserved crap, in their stomach. So I think that's a big part of it.
Are people pretty receptive to that?
Yeah, they are. Some people just kind of look at me like they're not sure. But I think I've been doing it long enough now that people are listening more. Like,
you've got some credibility.
Yeah. When I was like in my 20s doing this, I got a lot more flack. But I think dog owners have changed too since then. A lot. Like, people love their dogs a lot more. I don't want to say a lot more now, but a lot of people aren't having kids and their dogs are their kids. So that's a big thing.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
So.
I can think back to even when I was a kid. Growing up, my grandfather had a farm, and the dogs weren't like members. You wouldn't call your dog a member of the family.
They were like livestock. Yeah. Just like
they were like the chickens.
Outdoor. Yeah. It's definitely not the case anymore.
Yeah. Now they buy little sweatshirts for their dogs.
Yeah. It's a whole thing. They're spending all their money on their dogs for sure.
Yeah. Who saw that coming?
Yeah, I know. Well, it's also great for me because it's like, I always say like dogs were domesticated 15,000 years ago. And now like I have a whole like livelihood business like designed around it, So they've really done a good job for themselves.
It's crazy though that there's still a huge portion of people that don't train their dogs.
Yeah, I know.
They get these big dogs.
Yeah.
And just...
Yeah, and those are like my least favorite cases when they contact me when they're all fucked up.
Yeah, the dog's 5 years old, just running
And
amok.
I'm just kind of like, you missed your window. That's another topic, is just talking about like the early investment. Like, I can't like drill that into people's brains like enough. Just don't, even if vets should be ashamed of themselves if they're still telling clients, keep your dog at home until they're fully vaccinated, because it can mess up a lot of dogs for the rest of their life. So that's a big one for me, for sure, is getting them when they're young. That's my favorite thing to do, because you're preventing. You can see like the change in like this one guy's dog that came to class. All he did was a 3-week course. He was going to wait until next month to start. And I said, I would just do this little 3-week course I'm going to do before the holidays. His dog completely changed in 3 classes. Like, it was terrified. It wouldn't even move and was shaking. To the next week, he was like kind of like reactive and like lunging at the dogs for doing weird stuff. And then by the 3rd week, he was like wagging his tail and visiting. And like, I was like, yeah, that's why we start.
That's why I recommended this.
Yep. And he was like, thank you.
Yeah. You would think it's just like a child. And if you isolated your kid and didn't have any rules for your kid to follow and didn't
no
reinforce
exposure.
Any boundaries, we know those kids.
Yeah.
You see those kids grow up and they're little monsters.
Yeah, definitely.
And your dog's the same way.
Yeah, or just being too shy, and nervous, like antisocial. Like, that to me is a big deal, especially little kids, If they just, like little kids that had to deal with COVID, going through schooling and during COVID. I see a lot of teenagers like that I just interacted a little bit in dog training class. They like couldn't even function or handle taking instruction from me, like basic instructions, like making eye contact or just being able to like listen and execute basic tasks. I'm like, damn, this is annoying.
It's scary to be seeing that already.
Yeah, it is. And I've seen a lot of it actually. So I don't know, but I don't know.
I get all these posts on Twitter about, the youngest generation and how they're entering the workforce and they're not good employees because they don't have communication skills. They can't interact with people.
It's true. And they don't understand, like, I don't know, there's just this sense of like customer service and or like caring, or even like the thing I notice is the funny thing is like counting money, and like, 'cause I'm a big cash person, like I still like to use cash, and so if watching a young person try to like count back cash is painful. Like, it's a lost art. Like, they're just like, oh, here you go,
Yeah, where do I put my card?
Yeah, exactly. They kind of look at you like cash, like you're old. So yeah, it's interesting. There's definitely like a lot of skills are not being taught, I think. Or I guess the skills are just different. I mean, you could make fun of me for not knowing how to do a Instagram story, having to learn how to do a reel. So
yeah, meanwhile, those kids might be adept at ChatGPT.
Sure.
Creating things.
See, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more like, I like the real life stuff though. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, sometimes if you're spending too much time online, I think that's a problem, but that's just my opinion. Real life interactions, I think, are always going to be better and healthier for people.
Healthier for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
The online atmosphere is, I mean, it's easy to shit on it, but it's definitely taking over. I don't know how you combat that or if people would even want to.
I don't know. I think there's a balance that a lot of people maybe don't understand it. I definitely feel that like balance of, using it for certain purposes. And I'm really good about keeping it positive. And like even things like talking about, my marriage and stuff like that. I've only just put out a little bit of just like basic information and mostly just positive, like how things are going with me. And I don't want to put anything out there negative. Same with the dog stuff. I had to learn the hard way, like earlier when I would take a strong stand on shock collars and different things like that. And I definitely had to learn the hard way.
I need like a lazy Susan that we could just rotate
just
around.
Wheel it around. That's a good idea. But yeah, I had to learn the hard way that if unless I'm down to like have a freaking conversation and an argument with people on my social media page, then I just leave it alone. It might not be worth it, It's like some people don't want to be educated, but I will educate those people like in person, and it's very different. People are bold online.
Because there's no consequences.
And they're negative. Like I had some lady the other day on this food thing. Everyone was totally into it. All these ladies were all stoked about it and asking questions. One lady's like, well, pretty sure that most of these people would just throw a slab of meat down for their dog. And so I totally disagree like with what you're trying to, educate. It's very important that you have this and that. And I just deleted her comment because I was like, and if she came back, like that's what I do. And I just delete them. And then if they come back, I just block them because I'm like, I just don't have the time or the energy to deal with you. Like unless they have a valid point, it should just be.
And how often do they have a valid point?
Not very often. No. And every now and then there has been, but I'm just like, yeah, you have your stance and I have mine, but I don't like arguing, really. It's just not my thing. So I try not to do that online. Yeah. Because, it can get negative and really bad really quickly, I think, with people because people are way more bold online. Like if you're standing in front of me, would you really be saying that? No, probably not, So I don't know. For me, I try to make the balance of like not being on it too much. I notice I've been on a lot more since like Jason's been gone because it's a social thing and it's a good thing in a lot of ways. But like just balancing it though with like making sure you're not just on the computer on your phone all the time.
Yeah, balance it with actual human connection.
Yeah, interactions.
Real space.
Definitely. Yeah. So
is it hard for you to maintain that balance of not engaging in the comments?
Not anymore. It was at first, like wanting to like, stick up for like deal with everything, but now again, I'm just like, nah.
Can just check out.
Yeah, because I don't think that people are gonna get it. Like I've realized that you can argue till you're blue in the face, but then they're just dragging you into their own negativity. So why go down that road? That's like the lady the other day was just delete, bye.
Yeah, block.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's kind of my thing with it. Is like I have a pretty good balance now, but it took years to figure that out, for sure. Like it's a practice, yeah, just for your business especially, yeah. So and in personal social media, it's like again, I think it's best to just keep it positive too, for the most part, without being fake.
That's the challenge. Is you want to be true to yourself and be authentic. But there's a line somewhere in there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, where it can go too far. Yeah.
Especially about oversharing with personal things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure people reach out and especially with what you're going through, want to talk about it or talk to you or hear your story. And it's like, okay, yeah, I kind of want to share so that if somebody is going through something similar, they can have this perspective, but it's also your life.
Yeah.
And you don't want to just put that out there for everyone.
I think it's a lead by example. Like that's something I've learned is when there's lack of like anything else to do or other things aren't working, you just got to lead by example. People will pick up on it. I've gotten a lot of really cool like comments from other females, like just messaging me and like texting me and being like, just saying really cool stuff. Like you've always been an inspiration to me. And I'm like, wow. That's really cool. Like you're so strong. And I'm like, dang, nice. Okay. So that's really cool. So that leading by example, it does come back. People don't always tell you things, but when they do, you're like, wow, that's awesome. I didn't really realize that, So I think that's something I live by. Just do what you need to do and like keep it on the straight and narrow. Don't get too out of control,
Yeah, don't wade into the mud.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, very good way of putting it.
I think I'm still trying to find that balance. I've talked about it a few times on this in regards to the comments, but I don't think I have a solid approach yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the things that get talked about on here.
Yeah. How are you going to stay neutral? Well, that's probably part of your business, though. You're going to have to like, for you, like I don't know, with my situation, if you like educate very much on dog training, but some of these people that come on, you probably have to like prepare for battle. Like I better be ready to like have a real discussion with this person, right? Like, because I mean, I can't imagine you're an expert at like all these topics.
I don't think I'm an expert at any of them.
Well, you can keep up with people. You know, you're not just like, oh, what about this? And you know, it makes it more entertaining. You know. So that's something like that's good, you know, to be able to like understand like people's opinions and argue it out. But yeah, that's definitely not what I like doing. I'd be uncomfortable with that. I don't know if I would like to do that. I like to be like discuss the things I know that I know for sure. Otherwise I'm like, I don't know if I want to touch that subject.
See, that might be my problem is I'm not afraid to wade in.
Yeah.
I'll say, I don't really know, but let's have a conversation.
But you'll have conversations or ask questions. Some people get pissed off if you just ask questions, but that's a good way to like start, you know, a running commentary is to ask questions. And if people are already getting defensive when you're asking a question, it's like,
we have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then it's not like education. You're just like sticking to your guns on something and not explaining yourself. So, yeah.
What always gets me is when they just expect that you know. Oh, you're not educated on this? You need to go educate yourself.
Yeah,
it's like, that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, educate me. You're here.
Yeah, you seem to know, so what's going on?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, go educate yourself.
That kills me.
Like, okay, so after we get off the podcast, I'll go educate myself.
Yeah, and who am I supposed to educate myself to if I can't ask the question?
Yeah.
If everyone just says, oh, go educate yourself. How do I do? Well, I'm just going to go on Reddit?
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
It's a crazy time.
It is.
It's a crazy world.
Yeah, the post-COVID too. Like people are a little crazier than usual.
Post-COVID, post in the middle of wars.
Yeah.
Not even post.
I know. It's true. Yeah. I don't even like to focus on any of that stuff. So I'm just like, I'm in my bubble.
That's my problem. I can't get out of that bubble now. I'm so locked in of just, okay, what's going on now?
What's next?
What's next?
Yeah, I probably would be if like if I had to look into it, you know, otherwise I'm like, I'll just stick with my dog brain.
I think it's happier that way.
It is.
Let me unplug.
Yeah.
It doesn't directly affect you most of the time.
Yeah, that's an argument that I've had with the significant other many, many times. And I'm just like, it's just a waste of time for me. Like,
why do I want to get upset?
Yeah, because this is something I can't change. There's educating yourself, but then there's like, what can you get out there and do that you can actually like make a difference and do and change. Like I know I can like educate people and dogs and that I can make a change that way. So I'd rather put all my energy into that, you know?
And that's a positive topic.
Yeah, definitely.
If you were just screaming into the void about Israel and Palestine.
Yeah. When you're not over there and you don't really know what's going on at all. So that's my whole thing. I get uncomfortable when I don't know the facts. I was like COVID. I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. I knew my intuition. So I just like flew under the radar until it was over. And I didn't like point fingers at anybody. I just was kind of like, like
let's find out.
To the people that were, you know, adamant about needing it to be done. I was like, see, good luck. Like, you know, but yeah, I'm not a big arguer. Unless
that's a bad thing.
Unless it's people in front of me and I'm making a point about something, you know?
Or people spreading misinformation about dogs.
Yeah, for sure.
Then you're like, okay.
Yeah.
I'll go to bat over
now
this.
It's on.
Yeah, now we can talk.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's the healthy perspective to have. And people don't engage in that. And that was something for COVID. You didn't see that on the other side. I talked to a lot of people on here who were hesitant of the vaccine, but were willing to wait and see how the information changed, or would admit that they didn't really know. And that's why they were waiting, is because something didn't sound right to them.
It didn't feel right.
But everybody on the other side of that argument, nobody was taking a measured stance in that way.
Yeah, it's true.
Everybody was a doctor.
They were just going for it. Yeah, which is kind of scary how easily the minds can be manipulated in the masses.
At the drop of a hat.
Yeah, talking about herd immunity and shit. Yeah, I was like, this is where it's getting weird, guys. We're a herd now. Like
6 feet.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the worst.
Get in your bubble.
I was just like pissed off for the first 6 months, like driving around in my Jeep with my handkerchief because I was like refusing to wear a mask. I never bought a mask. That was like a thing. Like someone made one for me one time and I'd like take the disposable ones, but I was like all handkerchief, like whatever. This is pissing me off.
I wore a neck gaiter.
Yeah.
Probably for a year.
Yeah. Those are the easiest. Yeah.
Not stopping anything.
Yeah, no. But you're just like, okay, I'll cover up my freaking mouth because everybody thinks that they're safer. Maybe the KN95 mask might be like the one thing that I suppose would keep you somewhat safe.
Supposedly they didn't do anything either.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was the look, the Cochrane review came out that even that the results were negligible.
What a waste, dude.
How many of those masks ended up in the ocean?
So many.
Landfills.
Oh, millions. I remember like during all those years, that's like what you would see on the ground everywhere.
Just piles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and hand sanitizer. I mean, I have nothing wrong with hand sanitizer, but it got a little excessive, you know?
Everybody's got it on them.
Yeah, 24/7. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I actually have a lot of it because of my friends' kids.
I think it made me a little OCD there for a while because I was constantly washing my hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, I know. That was like one of my things too. I was like, all right, well, at least I'll wash my hands thoroughly if I'm not going to get vaccinated. Whatever.
It almost doesn't feel like the past few years have been real.
I know.
Right? When you think about it, everything that's gone on.
Like it shifted. Things shifted so quickly. Like part of all that stuff, like with the whole war and everything starting, it's like pushed a huge shift of mindset so fast that like we didn't have a chance to be like, wait.
What happened?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's going on? Yeah. I think people are like again, they're just kind of like not even able to process what went on. It's so weird.
You're just moving from one catastrophic event to the next.
Yeah.
You don't have any time to work through the emotions.
And that strangely feels like pre-planned as well, you know, by the government. I'm not.
But it's weird how.
I'm not trying to be the tinfoil hat, but
you could be the tinfoil hat.
Yeah.
It's weird how we're used to it now.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah, it's
the chaos is now the new normal.
Yeah, well, and the internet's part of that too, because people become so reliant on that too, and like I don't know, it's like a big ball of stuff.
I've seen so many videos come out of Ukraine of people just getting blown up. Just an egregious amount. It is so weird that we now have the internet to document these wars, and I'm sure stuff's coming out of Israel and Gaza.
Yeah.
It's probably just equally as insane. I watched this one video of this Russian guy, and he was running around this cart, and a drone was chasing him. And there were two angles. There was like a drone higher up in the sky videoing it, and then you had the video feed from the drone.
Wow.
And it's just, he knows what's happening, and he's running around the cart, and the drone is chasing him, and then it catches him and just blows up.
That's scary. That's creepy. Yeah. See, that's why I don't like to look at that stuff.
Yeah. And you're probably happier because of it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't want to
think about that all the time.
I don't want to be ignorant, but that's scary stuff. Yeah. And that was like really frustrating to see that and not be able to do anything about it. You know, that's frustrating.
Yeah. How do you stop that?
Yeah. It's just sad, you know, just very disheartening.
I keep thinking, how long before something like that comes here? With the drone technology, I mean, drones are incredibly cheap nowadays.
That's true.
And someone just
everyone has them.
Some homemade bomb on it and flies it somewhere.
You gotta stop now. It's probably possible right now, right?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, people make homemade bombs all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, not good.
Just fly that sucker around.
Yeah. It's not good at all.
How do you stop that?
You don't.
You don't.
Yeah, you just hope people don't do it, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if I have that much faith in humanity anymore. People are...
Yeah, I know.
People are going a little sideways.
It's true. You have to choose your circle of friends, I think, and people you surround yourself with. I mean, you can't always like control everything, but I think that's something that you can control, like who you spend your time with. I'm learning that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And some people just aren't like, I don't want to say not worth the time, but you know, some situations and some people just might be a little too much like to carry. So, you know, just keep it simple. Be around people that make you happy. Maybe that's the best way to go, you know?
I know a lot of people that have these relationships with people that are just draining on them. It's almost like a cancer that they just continually choose to keep in their life.
Yeah, I could sympathize with that. You know, sometimes things are just, that's your reality until it becomes different all of a sudden. You're like, whoa, I have a choice. Like, okay, you know, now it's different. So, but yeah, I think sometimes people just carry those things because it's your family, it's your, you know, it's your obligation, your loyalty, your level of loyalty. Like I'm an extremely loyal person, so I could take a lot from people, you know, but then yeah, the older you get, you're kind of like, is this worth it? You know, I've lost friendships over the years that you're really bummed about and sad about, but then My mom said that to me one time. She was like, you're not gonna be able to hold on to every relationship that you have. She says there's gonna be a lot of them that will end. And that's okay. Like, because sometimes they're just meant to be like for a part of your life, not your whole life. That's pretty rare. And I was like, that's actually really absolutely true. I think that even with, people getting divorces. So a lot more people nowadays that get divorced, but I don't know, is it better to stay in a situation where you're unhappy because of obligation, or is it better to decide maybe it's time, to move on?
That's the question. I think the generation before us, it was just you would white knuckle it through your relationship until the end.
Yeah.
No matter how bad it got, or if you weren't happy.
Yeah, and you could see some pretty unhappy people.
Pretty unhappy people.
Yeah, so that's not good.
But then you have the reverse of the generation below that is, I mean, with Instagram, with Tinder, I wonder if anybody's going to be getting married.
My God.
Now that you just have access to everyone in the world,
yeah, it's kind of
at a swipe.
It's kind of crazy. Yeah,
your options are limited.
I don't think I'm going to do the Tinder.
You're not on there yet?
No. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, Tinder, that's Hinge, weird. Bumble, there's a couple of them out there.
Yeah, I remember one time my friends were saying something about Tinder, and we were like at a bar, and my husband was with me, and they were talking about Tinder, and I was like, oh, Tinder, for like fire starter material. I'm like, we collect that all the time, and they're like, oh, Janna.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Very naive.
Yeah, Tinder's an interesting place.
Yeah, no Tinder.
Never say never.
That's true. I guess I can't say never. We'll wait. We'll see in 6 months.
I think something came out a while ago that most people nowadays are getting into relationships online. Mm-hmm. That's how they start now.
Well, I guess it's a broader reach. I mean, that's, I guess, a positive thing, right? For some people, I'm sure it totally works out. Otherwise maybe you'd never find that person. So
that's the pro, right?
Yeah.
Is you might come across somebody that you wouldn't have met otherwise without that.
Yeah, I'm more into like, I guess the hopeless, like,
meet a person in real life.
Yeah.
Bump into them at the market.
Yeah, and it happens. Yeah, but you don't meet people that are like outside your town or your area that way. So yeah, and the internet has its advantages for sure. Major advantages.
I wonder what that's going to do. Obviously, I mean, I don't even know the state of relationships in our world today because you have that. So why, at the slightest inconvenience, why stay? Because you could go find someone that's theoretically better.
Yeah.
At least on the screen, they appear to be better.
Yeah.
And you're just bouncing around.
Which a lot of that is definitely not reality at all. Like what you see in pictures and things like that, a lot of times are not like the reality of the situation.
They're not even real people anymore. You've got AI models on
bots.
Instagram.
And like, yeah, people getting hacked left and right. Like I know like every week somebody ends up getting hacked. One of my friends, I'm like, is this you? Like I have this friend he's gay, and he was like, he popped up as a friend request, and he's like, hey, beautiful, how are you today? And I was like, and I saw him at the gas station the same day. I was like, hey, I think you got hacked. And I'm like, not that I don't, thanks for the compliment, but I was like, that doesn't sound like you. And he's like, God damn it, again. He's like, thanks for telling me. But I was just like, that doesn't sound like how he would say hello to me. And I'm pretty sure we're already friends on Facebook. I guess he's been hacked like 10 times. He has a business, and he has this whole company that's making sweatshirts and making money off of his business that he didn't even know about until he found it online after somebody told him about it. He's like, this isn't even me. It's kind of crazy. That's the scary internet stuff that I don't like.
Yeah, 10 times is a lot.
Yeah.
Something's got to change there.
Definitely.
They're getting more creative. That's the scary part.
Yeah, are they even real humans? Like, that's the other scary part.
I don't know. I think I was watching a video where they were generating somebody's voice, and it was this lady's granddaughter, and they called her up and got money out of her. And they were just doing it to show this is how easy it is now. You can match somebody's voice off like a 3-second clip.
That's crazy.
And
yeah, my friend had this thing where she got her Instagram hacked, and someone was like messaging her family members saying like that her kid wanted, can you get me like I don't remember what it was, like GameStop, like
coupons or gift cards.
Gift cards. And that was like crazy to me. And like posting like pictures of her kid and stuff. I'm like, that would piss me off. That's creepy. Not good.
See, that goes back to the sharing on these platforms, the oversharing.
Yeah.
I don't even see the appeal. You have people that are constantly posting their partners or who they're dating and all this stuff. I don't like posting, period.
Yeah.
Outside of the podcast, I probably wouldn't post anything. Actually, I wouldn't post anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of my MO. Is
Incognito.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like sharing some things, and I guess it's like a good feeling sometimes, like for positive, to get positive feedback. And I guess I take note to like, is this going to be like helpful, harmful, and is it going to make a point or a difference, and if not, maybe it's not worth it. So I don't know, that's kind of my rules.
Yeah, when I post for this, I just put it out there.
I was like
some
posting
people are
a
gonna
story
love it, some people are gonna hate it.
about growing sprouts, and I was like, people probably think I'm a total lunatic. And this morning, this one chick's like, this is so inspiring. She's like, I've always wondered how to make sprouts. She's like, you're totally making me want to do this now. And I was like, all right, I've one sprout enthusiast, so it was worth it.
See, that's the good side of
the
social media.
Yeah.
You get to see that.
Yeah.
And you get to have those interactions with people.
Yeah. And be like, oh, well, if people think I'm a sprout dork, I don't really care.
I'm making sprout converters.
Yeah, exactly. That's good for you.
Yeah. The growing your own food is just, it's lost today.
Yeah, it is.
That's why I like Tessa's channel. She does a lot of that, and she's showing people how to process chickens, how to get back these skills that we've kind of lost.
The basics, yeah. Which are not basics at all. It's hard work. Like I follow and I get almost all of my food from Shake Fork Farm in Carlotta. And that's something that I started doing this year more than ever, is just like supporting as much locally as I possibly can, and them with their chicken and their beef. And I got a turkey from them, and like being able to go out to the farm and see where the food is grown. Like I remember driving out and seeing my turkey out there just like chilling in the sun. And then the next week picked the poor guy up and he was gone. But for me, being a former vegetarian for 18 years, like that, I can get behind eating meat because it's healthier for me, because I had so many allergies to the things that a vegetarian was supposed to eat that I had to go back to eating meat. So I found a way to make it like ethical to where I was like okay with it. So that's kind of my thing with food. It's like eat seasonally and like try to keep it as close to home as you possibly can. That feels really good too. I like that a lot. So that's why I like going to the farmer's market and seeing Tessa and, going out to Shake Fork Farm and stuff like that. Because that's like the best way to live. I think it got me healthy again too. Like keeping the food pretty fresh, pretty close to home. And the seasonal eating thing, I like that because you're not forcing produce to produce, to ripen when it's not supposed to. Like I don't even anymore. And I look at tomatoes in the grocery store and I'm like, it's not going to taste good because it's a tomato in December. So I don't know. That's just kind of it's my new, I wouldn't say maybe a little obsession, but and then I'll eat things like right now I'm just about over squash because I've eaten so much freaking squash because it's in season right now. I ate so many apples from Clendenin's that I was like, oh, I can't see another apple.
I'm ready for the season to change.
Yeah. So ready for the next, the next things to come along.
You were vegan for 18 years? Vegetarian. I
did veganism for 6 months and that was hardcore.
Like I'm going back to vegetarian.
Yeah, because it was too much. Like it was just because I tried to do all the things. Like you're not even supposed to go to the movies because of the film that it's printed on and stuff like that, and like the animal byproducts.
You can't go to the movie.
Yeah, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something about the way that the film's processed. There's animal products in it.
So you can't even. It's not even just consuming animal products.
No, it's like a whole everything. What's on your shoes? Is there like leather strap on your pants? All the things that go into it. Like what's in your lotion and all that stuff. So yeah, it was like a full-time job just trying to be vegan. I felt like I was like, I'm kind of doing this to be pompous. I think I'm gonna chill out a little bit. But then the vegetarian to meat eating again was all allergy based. So my segue meat was beef jerky. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to go for it. And I was like, damn, this is really good.
Segue.
It was perfect. Yeah.
That's how it started. It was a dietary thing.
Yep. Having all kinds of stomach issues and, just feeling miserable, and finally going to the right doctor that did the right tests. And they're like, eggs, which really sucks because I'm still allergic to eggs and have freaking 11 chickens. But I give them to the neighbors and friends and people that I care about. And I trade them for things. So it's really cool. I do, so I enjoy that for that. And I love my chickens. I'm not going to get rid of them, now just because I can't eat eggs. The dogs eat the eggs, and so it's worthwhile to me. But yeah, like some of the other things like wheat, yeast, like corn. At the time, corn, soy, wheat, oats.
Which is 90% of food nowadays.
Peanuts. I was like, oh, I'm screwed, man. And like all the vegetables and all the meats and half the fruits were fine. And I was just like, okay. And that's pretty much kind of how I eat now. Like I lost 30 pounds this year over the course of the year. A lot of it was towards the end getting well again, but also cutting out like all the extra crap. I mean, not alcohol, but and it can't be perfect. But the bread and like all the other things, eating out, like I don't even really enjoy eating out anymore. Like I do when it's the right place and the food's actually good and the service is good. Like, I've been to some places before. I'm like,
what's going on?
Seriously? Like, are you really serving me right now? Because like I could get up and go to the kitchen and get it myself. You know, that's why I like to eat out, is to just sit down and relax. You know, I like sushi spots really good. It's one of my favorite places to go to. But I like trek up to Arcata to get there. You know, but I had a really good. I went to down to Rio Del to the Wildwood Waffles the other day. Have you ever been? Now you probably don't go down that way very often. Yeah, there's this place called Route 101. It's like a nursery hydroponic store, and they have like a waffle shop in it, and it's called Wildwood Waffles, and it's good.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, the guy's getting ready to like sell the business, and the they're gonna move it to the Scotia Lodge, like it used to call the Scotia Inn, but that's a cool place to go too. Like if you go down that way, but yeah, the waffle place is good. Yeah, very good. So there's some places that are good. Fortuna doesn't have a very like wide variety.
Limited selection.
It is. So you got to drive up north, you know, to eat out. So I just mostly like cook my own food. It's just easier.
Easier and healthier for you.
It is. It's just simpler. You know what's going into it. You know, it's cheaper. So like it's not super cheap to buy all that local fresh food, but it's way cheaper than eating out, especially if you're drinking. Like
you gotta have a little
$12 margarita. Yeah. Oh, Tuya's in Ferndale is fantastic. I love that place.
I haven't been there either.
It's so good. Like really good. I'll probably eat there once a week and like never have problems like with my stomach ever.
I know so many people that have dietary issues. And part of me is curious, is it the food that we're cultivating nowadays, or is it everything that's being sprayed on the food?
Probably a combination for sure. Yeah, I'm sure it's a combination. And I think overdosing, like that was part of my problem, is just overdosing on specific things so much for so long that my body's like, nah, I don't like you anymore. Because a lot of the things I was allergic to originally, I went back to eating as long as I didn't go overboard. But like part of the problem with the eggs is I was eating eggs like 2-3 times a day sometimes. So I like got toxic on eggs. So I think variety is important. That's why I like the seasonal eating concept. Like kind of forces you to just like to rotate what you're eating and
get more of a balance.
Yeah.
Instead of just honing in on one thing.
Yeah. Like I used to eat like peanut butter toast every morning. I'm like, now I'm like, I'll like bake squash and like put chicken on it and like some goat cheese, like a totally random breakfast, but I feel good. Like, so it's better to feel good than to eat something that's not gonna make you feel good all day. You know, I let go of the concept of breakfast foods. Because if you can't eat eggs, like I'm not a big bacon eater, then like, and that's not really that good for you anyways, you know, or oatmeal and stuff. Like, so I make more like dinner for breakfast a lot of times now. So it's kind of good.
What does that look like for you?
Like I said, like the squash right now or like just I'll get up and like bake chicken first thing in the morning, you know, or I'll do things like that, or I'll just have like almond butter on apples or things like that. Simple stuff, you know. Put a little protein on your vegetables or fruit, and you're good to go. Yeah, I like cheese a lot for sure. Yeah,
cheese is good. Bread is the hard one for me. Bread and pasta.
It's really hard for me. Pasta, I'm not a big fan of.
I'm a sucker for some pasta.
Yeah, I'm a big sucker for bread, but the longer I've stayed away from it, like I've noticed that I'll get itchy now when I eat it, and I'm like, oh, okay, or my stomach will hurt and I'll feel bloated. So I only get like maybe a loaf of bread like once every 2 weeks now. And I'm like, damn. But I do love bread. I've kind of gotten over the addiction of it though. Like, you know, some people say they give up sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to do that. I'm not a big sugar eater, but except for the alcohol, that's another form. But the bread thing, yeah, it took me like 2 weeks of not eating it. And I was like, okay, I'm okay now. Now I can eat it sporadically, but I think it is a bit of an addictive, you know, thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially sugar, the amount of sugar they just put in everything.
Yeah, that's true.
You're just consuming it all the time. I had hot sauce one time that had a ton of sugar in it.
That's weird.
Why do we have sugar in hot sauce?
Yeah, that's random.
Just cranking it and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
My plan is to do the carnivore diet for a month.
Oh, God.
And just see see what happens.
Yeah, you might end up with gout.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't heard that.
Well, I mean, it's usually generally hereditary, but that happened to somebody that I know.
Trying the carnivore diet?
Yeah, just the gout flare-up came up within like a few days. I just think it's too much meat. Go like meat and vegetables. At least throw in some veggies.
I was doing meat and strawberries and olive oil for a while. And I felt great.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that.
Just that. I had a guy in here, he was running the equipment, shout out to Andy, for a while, and he would just make fun of me every day because I bring it in a little meal prepped container and just eat that before we're going to do a podcast.
OCD.
Yeah. Just
meal prepping.
He's like, you're eating meat, strawberries, and olive oil.
What are you like taking shots of olive oil?
No, the olive oil is just drizzled on top.
Okay. That's kind of something.
But I felt great.
Yeah, that's
I had
the
a mental clarity.
Yeah.
I didn't feel lethargic. I felt like I was running on all cylinders.
Yeah, well, everybody's different. So that's when you find the right like equation ratio of like what you need. I think that's the most important thing. Like for me, eating chicken and turkey is like more of my jam than any other kind of meat. And then having more of that than anything else, like, and vegetables, like perfectly happy with that. My sprouts.
I think for me, a lot of the issues stem from just carbs. Just too many carbs in my diet.
I think they're good. Like in certain rations, I like rice a lot. Rice is always like really soothing and like calming for my gut too. So, but I think anything you can overdo it. But yeah, rice is a good one for me. It's a staple sometimes. So
I'm gonna have to check into the gout thing now. I want to try it. I had a guy on today who's carnivore and has been doing it for years and loves it.
Probably loves it. Yeah.
Loves it.
Who knows?
That's another cult. It's like the vegetarian vegan cult where people fall into it and then it's this all consuming thing of, oh, everyone's got to do this because the effects are so great.
Not necessarily right for everybody. Yeah. It just simplifies the diet though. For some people, probably then they're just not eating all the things. So it's
it might not be the best diet necessarily, but you're eliminating all of these problem foods for you.
Yeah.
So you just
being more
feel better because,
more strict.
Yeah, because you're only eating one thing.
Totally.
And meat is so bioavailable and your body can process it that you don't have these stressors on it.
That's true. Especially depending on where you get your meat from. I think that's important too. Like just going to the store and buying Winco meat. I'm not sure I would suggest that.
I've been getting meat from Cash and Carry, and I started thinking, I don't know how well
I get that. Like
meat...
one of my friends said that the bougie food, because I like that, and there's certain things I like that are bougie, like my delivered Crystal Springs water, no tap water, and the bougie meat and vegetables. I'm fine with that. Like I'll spend more money on that. I don't need to buy a bunch of other stuff. Like that's really important to me. And alcohol, like the good stuff.
Yeah, get the quality.
Yeah, like this one here. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. If you were going to spend money on something, the food that you're eating is probably a good choice.
Yeah, it's more expensive. I just don't even really pay attention. Like I bought the CSA share already for next year. And I remember it was more than it was the year before, but I'm like, it's fine because it's going to be like 24 weeks of vegetables. I don't have to go to Safeway anymore. I rarely ever go to the store. If I get meat from them too, it keeps me out of the store. I only go to the grocery store like once a month now. So it's kind of nice.
CSA shares out like a food co-op?
Yeah. And when it's a CSA, you go in, you sign up for it, and that farm makes sure they take on just so many people so that when you go to the farmer's market every week, they have a certain amount for you, a certain ration for you. So you're like their priority customer. You've already signed on to support them, and they're going to support you in that future year by giving you a certain amount of vegetables every week for the whole season. So they're like the ones that like really like are behind the concept of the seasonal eating for me. Because I'm just like, I'm not going to go to the store and buy a bunch of random stuff. I don't even have a taste for it anymore. And I force myself to like utilize what I've gotten that week. Even if it's like something I'm just like, what the hell is this? I'm like, well,
that's cool because you're getting it local.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know what's going into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know them now, like get to go out to the farm and stuff. So it just makes it even better. Yeah, I love them. They're awesome.
Yeah, that seems like the way to do it.
Yeah, and they've like hired me to go out there and do educational talks with their staff and stuff with their livestock guardian dogs. And it's just, I love that local reciprocal relationship. I'm big on that.
I think I've been wanting to check out, I think it's the Foggy Bottoms boys down there.
Mm-hmm.
And they
just opened an ice cream shop.
Yeah, I heard.
People are already like, it's so good.
Raving about it.
Yeah, my friend went the other day with her kid, and she was like, the ice cream's so good. And her and her mom know one of the guys and stuff, and like just the nicest guys, I guess. So yeah, they're making a name for themselves.
I think they sell beef as well.
Yeah, and I think they do eggs.
Yeah.
I've seen them at the farmer's market.
But it seems like they have a pretty cool setup down there with a regenerative farming approach.
I haven't looked into it very much.
Or rotational farming, maybe not regenerative yet.
Yeah. Well, they've definitely seemed to be doing pretty good for themselves. And they're in Ferndale?
I think Ferndale.
And their place is in Lolita, I think, the ice cream shop.
Okay.
I haven't gone
Yeah,
yet.
I've heard good things about the ice cream. I haven't made it down there yet.
I haven't.
Check it out.
You'll have to go down south.
I know. It's hard for me to get out of even Eureka.
You're working. Yeah. Working too much.
Yeah. Living in the studio.
Workaholic. Yep. It's a thing.
It's easy to slip into.
Yeah. I know. I'm trying not to do that as much because then I don't enjoy it as much. So it's hard because the customers, the clients are there, but sometimes I'm just like, it's a lot of brain power to use. So sometimes when I get overloaded, I'm like, it's time to back off a little. Because I just like, it's like being a therapist, but for like a dog and a human.
Yeah, you've got 2 clients.
Yeah, it's like kind of, people don't understand sometimes. I think they are more and more, but it's like, it can be exhausting. I can get really good clients nowadays, but still it's exhausting. It's like sometimes you got to do the self-care thing to make sure you're good at your job still,
Self-care is a struggle.
Yeah. I think that's something that comes with age.
I definitely don't have that yet.
Screw that. I don't feel good, man.
I'm
what am I
still
doing?
in that mindset of just keep your nose to the grindstone and burn the candle at both ends.
No, I told someone I know recently that's 25 and he works all the time. And I just said, well, just take it from me. Like when you look back on your 20s, you're not going to be like, damn, I wish I'd worked more. And he just kind of like shakes his head about it, and it's like, well, I can't tell anybody to change what they're going to do. But I remember my 20s, all I did was worked. Didn't have a very good time. But again, maybe that's not a good thing for everybody. Maybe it's better to wait till you're a little more mature, like to back off a little bit. So I don't know what the right thing is for everybody. But I do think like sometimes when you get working too much, like it takes away from other things that you could be doing with your life, That's
the challenge with advice is you're not going to hear it until you're ready to hear it.
Yeah, and then you'll be telling somebody
and
younger.
Just listen. I'm telling you the truth. But you're gonna appreciate it down the road.
A lot of people aren't gonna hear it if they don't want to. You could say it. Like if I feel like saying something like, just a quick little brief thing, if someone hears it or not, it's up to them. But I don't want to lecture anybody either.
Even hearing you say that, I can recognize that. Yeah. The idea that you're gonna look back on your 20s and be like, damn, I wish I worked even longer.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. But even hearing you say that, I'm thinking, I can't do it.
Just take a day off.
Yeah.
You'll get there.
I feel like my existence at this point, if I let off the gas, I start to spiral. If I have downtime, it's almost like I'm not stimulated and then I lose my mind. I start causing problems. I
sit on your ass, or you like to get out?
No, I like to self-implode.
Cause trouble.
Yeah, That's
the good stuff, though. But I know
sometimes it's good. Sometimes it bites in the ass.
I know. Yeah, a little bit of both.
Yeah, which is sometimes it's nice.
I can
have it a little chaos.
Yeah,
it keeps things interesting.
But then you got to like get back on the rails and keep the train on the track.
Ship.
Yeah, one day a week off too, maybe or take like vacations. I'm on staycation right now, so I'm just like people are calling and like emailing, and I'm just no.
I'm out.
I'm out. Yeah, I'm out. I haven't had a minute to breathe all year, so it's just like it was perfect to be able to do this today because I don't have all this other stuff going on, so it's good. Staycations aren't always terrible. People are like, where are you going? What are you going to do? I'm like, I don't go anywhere. I don't have any money to do that, but I'm going to like just unwind and hang out and do things. I'm not a big hangouter, but I like to like ride my horse every day, like go outside with the dogs, walk the dogs, do all the things that you like neglect in your life, like gardening and things like that too. Like I'm not necessarily gardening right now. After the last rain, like the whole backyard is pretty much underwater. So that's not cool, but the chickens don't mind. They just tromp around in it.
When do you feel like you hit that state where you could find the balance and take the staycation and kind of unplug and recognize everything's going to be okay?
I think for me, it happened like in the last maybe 5-6 years of just starting to realize like, and not to say that people aren't appreciative, but it's not even like that. It's like people aren't going to back off or give you a break. You're going to be responsible for that yourself. It's like when I took over the business entirely in 2016, I was just like that, like constantly going, like, I gotta go. I'm super competitive. I'm gotta be the best dog trainer. There's, nobody else should be taking jobs. Like, it should be all me. And then I'm like, that's kind of ridiculous. Like, you don't have to be the only dog trainer in Humboldt, And so, yeah, there's this fear of like being the best too. So for me, like getting those like best of Humboldt and this and that kind of plugged a little thing in my head to be like overly competitive because I'm a super competitive person. But then after a while, I'm just like, we gotta like let that go a little bit, because like what's it gonna actually like get you in the end? Like total burnout or like not being as good at my job. Like I notice when I do like unplug a little bit, like shuts off a certain side of your brain for a little while and like it activates the other side. Like for me, it's like the creative side, the side that's like just kind of dormant because I'm focusing and thinking and helping and giving and doing all the time. So I think that's an important reason to do it too. Shut off that side of the brain for a minute and let it like chill out and do something with your other side. I don't know. That's kind of the way I feel when I take those little vacations.
Well, it makes sense. It allows you to recharge.
It does.
Then you can come back better.
Yeah. And if people, the sad thing is like feeling like, oh, it's like, it sucks because I get these calls and emails for people that like desperately want help. And I just can't. So I've given up on feeling guilty about it. Being like, I just can't help everybody when they need the help. If I did, I would be totally exhausted. I wouldn't be having a good time. And everything else in my life would be neglected. So yeah, that's like being a little bit like, and I don't even like using the word selfish, but it's designed to feel selfish for like self-care,
taking care of yourself,
like we were talking about. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like, I think it's an American thing too. Who was I talking to? It's like, I can't remember. It was someone I was having a conversation with. Oh, it was like talking about in Europe and how people live their lives in Europe versus here and how different America is. And we're just like programmed from birth to just go, work all the time. And that their lives in a lot of these countries over there, that they're totally different. And their focus is on, I work to enjoy my life, like to support what I want to do, just enough to have a really good, like fulfilled, like fun life. So earn enough to like enjoy your time off, which I think is really smart, not to work all the time constantly without a break. So
yeah, we don't have the just enough mentality here.
Nope.
It's all or nothing.
It is. Yeah. That's like kind of like all these other indoctrinated things that we see here in America. There's not a lot of like chilling out. So I think that part of that's being competitive nation too, right?
Well, just how we came to be.
Yeah.
The struggle.
Totally.
The grind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Out working, out doing everything.
So we got to keep doing it, right? Yeah. I don't know. I'm learning to, you know what? It took my neurologist said to me one time, it was a couple years ago, and I was telling him that I was like, I'm having more problems with my brain activity and just like my condition and stuff. And he's like, and I was telling him how often I was working and what was going on. He's like, it sounds like you're taking in too much data. And I was like, I think you need to back off a little bit. He's like, for the sake of like your brain and like your health, he's like, if you can just back off a little bit, because you can afford to find ways to afford to back off. And that like was when someone just says like something very simple and basic, but it sticks in your mind forever.
Clicks.
That was very profound. I was like, thanks, doc. Like, all right.
Good advice.
And I'm like, the doctor told me
I have to.
So I have to. Yeah. That was kind of a funny delivery approach because it gave me like this like guiltless way of being like, well, the doctor said I have to.
Yeah, I don't want to take time off, but doc's going to tie my hands.
Yeah. So it was actually like it was a nice gift. Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Iverson.
I might need to go see that doctor.
Yeah.
Say, hey.
Yeah. Find a condition that I have so I could take some time off.
I don't know. I feel like that ethos is so just intrinsically tied to where I am in this place.
Yeah.
That it's just the idea of separating myself from that is almost terrifying. That you just gotta work. I listen to a lot of motivational videos, and the challenge with that is every one of those people says you can't have time to focus on balance because the people that focus on balance aren't going to make it where you want to go. So you have to give it all. But then you have these successful people who have made it, and they're constantly saying, "Oh yeah, I probably could have taken more time off
Yep.
in my 20s and in my 30s and have gotten to where I am still."
Yeah. Well, it's probably a bit of an addiction. Like I think we all have addictions to different things. And so work is an addiction, I think, like to keep it up. For me, like I said, it was a competitive thing and not wanting to fall behind or like, disappoint anybody or not be the best. And I'm just like, what is the best? Like, you can't even quantify that. But it's the simplest little thing, like by getting an award for something makes you like, well, I got to get it next year. What if I take this time off, or what are people going to say if I don't get back to them, or, it's going to ruin my reputation, or
Yeah, then I'm going to fall off and nobody's going to want to come see me.
Yep. It's like a fear thing too, which I've had to learn to be like, it's going to be okay. Like they're going to keep coming back. It's going to be all right. And if some people don't get helped, like I got a lot of that this year. Well, I tried to contact you. I tried this. And I was like, I was really sick for a while and I was still working, but I was not capable of keeping up on the things that I normally would be able to. And I'm sorry, like I didn't get a chance to help you then, but I'm here now. I got one lady that was just like grinding me about it. And I was like, we're here now. So, and I was like, I was really sick. And she's like, oh, sorry. And I'm like, that's okay. I'm like, I'm sure it was frustrating, but there's only so much someone can do, So it's not good to get sick to like take time off, but that's also like wake up calls too,
Yeah. And if you burn yourself out completely, then you can't help anybody.
Yeah. Well, that's a fear of mine, is that I love my job. So I don't want to not love it anymore or be good at it, because I've like lost the spark, and that spirit to enjoy it and like love doing it and have the energy to do it, and the ambition too. So that's kind of my new focus now, that I have to take time off and back off and not feel guilty or feel bad because I can't help everybody, because it's not possible.
There's always going to be more people is the challenge. It's not like you have a set amount of clients that you could help and then you're done.
Yeah, no, I could work 7 days a week if I wanted to, and I could make a lot of money. But then what would I do with all that money? Nothing, because I would be working. And I don't have, I'm a saver, but I'm also very frugal. So I just like to have decided like, I don't need to work all the time to buy things. I would rather have time than money. So it's like that time versus money balance too, I think.
That's the key.
Mm-hmm.
I think the happiness is getting to a point where you can buy your time back.
Yeah.
And then just do what you want to do.
Yeah, and you have to make choices over like certain things that you do and don't do. If you want more time, it's also like it's totally irrelevant if you're working all the time, and making all this money. You don't have time to do anything fun. So what's the point, right?
Yeah, then you just got these boatloads of money, but you can't do anything.
Yeah, like all these motivational speakers, right? They're like all powerful and have all this money, but are they happy? Or, I don't know.
I don't know. The happiness question is a hard one.
It is. Some people, maybe that's where they're happiest is working all the time. So that's okay too. There has to be somebody that wants to work all the time, right? We can't all be like part-time employees, although that would be kind of nice, I mean, maybe we could, but I don't know. Some people just want to work all the time. That's okay. It's just not working for me, per the doctor.
Yeah, per the doctor who's tying my hand.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think in a way it's challenging with something in this format and kind of what you do, because you can satisfy the social aspect as well as the work aspect. Mm-hmm. So instead of just working and then trying to maintain a social life and see your friends and do these things, they almost combine into one.
They do, actually. That's a good point. Yeah, which I see that all the time. Like, and that's been like where, through some of the stuff that I've been going through this year, and going through a divorce and all of that is like being around my clients and getting to have that kind of support, even if a lot of them don't know what's going on with me personally, because I don't want everybody to know, and I'm supposed to be like their leader and the teacher, so I don't want to be like, but it at the same time like makes me a human being too, just like them. And I've found like being around the community and having all their support and being around all these dog people are pretty cool. Yeah. And I love the fact that like last weekend I did a impromptu like class at the park. Just was like, it was crazy raining like 2 weeks ago. And I had a lot of older lady clients coming from like Bridgeville and Garberville and McKinleyville. And I just put out the idea of moving to class to Saturday morning instead. And they're like, yes, please. Because they don't want to drive at 7:00 at night on a Wednesday. And I had like 15 people show up and we had the best time. And everybody was like, thank you so much. And you could see people are happy because they're learning, they're socializing, and they're like getting outside with their dog, and their dog's learning to not be a jerk. And like they're getting these skills to hopefully move forward and like have a really happy relationship with their dog forever. And that's definitely, I see a lot of clients that they just keep coming and doing dog classes, and they say that's a lot of it's for the social aspect and just like keeps them out and about doing stuff, you know. It's like an organized paid socializing session. You can't always find people to hang out with you, but you can like join a group class. That's probably why some people like doing like the CrossFit.
Oh, 100%.
And all these different like group things, you know, because you're around other people, you know, and it's an organized situation, but you're still socializing.
And it's hard to meet people as you get older.
Yeah.
Where do you, if you're not going to the bar?
Yeah, which do you really want to meet a bunch of friends? Although actually, I went out to the bar. I got a new tattoo the other day. This guy, Rob Gribben, who I've known a long time, he did this the other night. And so afterwards, we went out for a beer at Dave's place. And I was like, because I said, oh, can I have some sake while I'm here? And he's like, no, the owner has a no drinking policy in the tattoo shop. And I was like, damn. And so he's like, we could go for a beer. I always go after work. And I was like, okay. But it was totally random because I normally would not go to Dave's place. But it was fun to just hang out for a little bit and chat with people. But then I was like, all right, I gotta go.
Yeah, all right, my time's expired.
Yeah, I was getting a little like, you know, and I was like, it's like, it was a fun like hour at the bar, but I can't see myself ever just like hanging out and like talking and like shooting the shit with people at the bar all the time.
Be a bar fly.
Definitely not. There is a canteen at the Veterans Building now, so that's pretty cool. I mean, I don't go and hang out in there all the time, but when it's open, like after dog classes, I'll go in and like get a shot of Tito's after work, and so that's kind of convenient. But I usually like get in and get out pretty fast, you know. Like, yeah, definitely not my scene at the bar.
Yeah, it's hard, especially if you're going down in Old Town, like the 707 or the Clam. There's an expiration date.
Yeah,
you're like, I gotta get
it's gonna get weird now.
Yeah,
See,
weird and fast.
I haven't been to any of those places in years. It's usually like for like some friend's birthday or something when you're being forced to go, you know. So yeah, bar scene not so much. Yeah, and then yeah, that's the whole thing too. Like you say, how do you meet people? Tinder, huh?
Tinder.
That's funny stuff.
Cut to your Tinder profile. Right?
Yeah, right. Oh, that's scary. That's a scary.
Yeah, it's a different time.
Yeah, it is.
It's a different time.
Yeah, it is. So should we talk dog nutrition?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's like my newest passion is talking about, since we've been talking about nutrition anyways, in general, it's like dog nutrition is something that I know you brought up when I got here, and I've been talking a lot about it with my clients because people ask a lot of questions about what kind of dog food should I feed my dog, and you know, what should I be looking for in it? Because they're starting to hear a lot of these things that they should be hearing about the no grain diets in dogs. So like the no grain diet started, I don't know, I would want to say it at least 10 years ago, where you started seeing no grain diets in dogs. And a lot of that was because of the misconception that dogs were allergic to the grain source. But it was more of that the grain source wasn't even really like a proper like nutritional grain. So you'll see things like peanut hulls and like, you know, all kinds of other byproducts. Like peanut hulls is literally taking like the shells of peanuts and grinding them up and putting them in.
Oh, the husk?
Yes. So that's what that would be a filler. You know, there's all these random fillers. And so I'll tell people, when you look at your dog's like bag of food, don't look at the front that has like peas and carrots and a lamb, you know, floating through the field. Turn the bag over and look at the ingredients. Actually look at them. It's like the basic rule of thumb is, what are the first 3 ingredients? They should be like real meat, not meal, you know, not byproduct meal, and not something like there can be some random carb or something that's kind of unrecognizable. The first 3 ingredients, if it's a decent dog food, should be real food, meat generally. And so I say start there. But then people get so terrified. It's another like programming thing. Well, how do I know to feed my dog? Because I'm not sure. It makes me nervous. It makes me scared. And so I'll say there's very few things that dogs like shouldn't have. If you break it down to like eating healthy food, they can have most vegetables. They can have a lot of fruits. Like there's a whole thing about no garlic, but that's kind of on the fence. My dogs don't get a lot of garlic, but I don't freak out about it. I think garlic's actually pretty good for most animals. I use it for the chickens to deworm them. But onions aren't necessarily very good for dogs, but my dogs love sweet potatoes. They love squash. Squash is actually good. So like the vets, what they would say to people is if their dog was having like GI problems, go get some canned pumpkin and give them that. And so that would be like an anecdote that vets would actually tell people to do. And I'm like, well, instead of a can of pumpkin with other products and sugar and stuff in it, why don't you get a squash or a pumpkin? It's really easy to cook too. You cut it in half and you put it in a casserole dish upside down, and you put some water halfway up and cover it with tinfoil, and then 30 minutes later in the oven, you've got cooked squash. I do like twice a week. I'll do oatmeal. Rice is good for dogs too. Oatmeal or rice. And then I'll add in, like while it's boiling, I'll plop in a few eggs. And then I'll put coconut oil in it. And then at the end I put in like, because I don't want to go overboard too much with their food if my food is bougie. So, but it's still bougie. It's like the frozen organic grocery outlet's a perfect place to go to get food for your dogs. You can get decent real food. It's going to be better than dog food, period. Like a big thing of ground beef, a couple of bags of oatmeal, some eggs, and like the frozen bags of vegetables. I get that because it's nice at the end when the oatmeal is really hot and the dogs are sitting there staring at me like ready for breakfast. I'll put a half a bag of that in and just like roll it in. And then 10 minutes later, it's ready to go. And I put it in a container and I have food for them for like 4 days. And I add kibble. For me, I call it a modified diet, which just means you're relying on a good high quality kibble, because there are a lot of things that people do need to consider, like calcium is one of the most important things obviously for a dog to have, but there's definitely an importance to having a base, not just randomly feeding your dog human food, but you know what I mean. So for me, it's a nice crutch. Sometimes I'm really busy, so the dogs get mostly kibble. Like this morning I was busy, so it was kibble and like some cottage cheese on top. They're perfectly happy with that. But when people are worried about feeding their dogs something new, I just tell them it's just like whatever advice you get from the vet on switching their diet. Take like 2 weeks and just, if you want to add something, like add like a spoonful of something and just see what happens. Because some dogs don't settle well with certain things, but like my dogs, they have a strong like stomach because they eat a variety of food. I saw so many dogs when I worked at the vet clinic coming in with GI problems all the time. They're like, well, he got into a piece of chicken, or they're so sensitive that they go into like a total spiral because they got a little bit of actual fresh food. Like that's when I kind of started going, this is weird. And then back to the no grain thing, that's like basically protein percentages of cat food. And so I'll tell my clients all the time, your dog is an omnivore, not a carnivore. So when you're feeding your dog like carnivore percentages, like a cat, of protein, they're starting to see heart problems that correlate in young dogs, especially big dogs, like cardiomyopathy with getting too much protein and not being fed an omnivore diet. So I'll just tell people, if you want to do the no grain diet, because it's a good quality food, like I feed From. It's not a really well-known brand, but that's a good thing. It's FROMM. It's like everything else. It's like $80 a bag now. So that was one of my reasons for being way more consistent with the modified diet. I can go to a grocery outlet and buy, $20 worth of all the things I just listed. And that's probably 2 or 3 weeks worth of food. So then that bag of dog food is going to last me twice as long. Like $80 for a 26-pound bag of dog food, but I'll still buy that and feed fresh food versus like feeding something lower grade. Like some of the foods are just not good at all. And there are seeing a lot of studies now that dogs are dying way younger, not even making it to 10 years old from cancer. And personally, I had several dogs that had cancer, and they, eventually we all have to pass from something. But dogs used to live to be like 15 easily. It's extremely rare for a dog to live to be 15 anymore. And for the large breed dogs, like a lot of them aren't even making it till 10. And then you wonder about all the other problems with their bodies, with their hips and their bone growth and all those other things too. So I don't know. I just feel like fresh is best. And the dogs love it. Like absolutely love it. And you were saying earlier about just adding water to the kibble. Some people that are like a little too like nervous about feeding their dog, any human food, quote unquote, I'll just say, well, just add water to the kibble and they'll at least get more moisture that way. And you'll have less of the chugging. I call it when they're a chugger. Because I'll just say my dog will go over and just like drink a whole bowl of water. And I'll say, is that like after they eat a bunch of kibble? And they're like, yeah. Like there's probably salt too, like in your dog's dog food. And they'll look and come back later and be like, you were right. So like, yeah, they're trying to imagine like eating a whole sleeve of like saltines and like how that would sit in your stomach, So I don't know. I'm definitely becoming more and more of a fan of the fresh food thing and like just educating people. I'm not trying to go against any advice that veterinarians give, but I worked with them for 20 years. So I have a lot of respect for veterinarians. But the thing is their job is specifically designed for certain things. And unless they're like an actual canine nutritionist, which I'm not, I'm just somebody who's been doing it for a long time and have years of experience with multiple dogs doing it. But vets are usually only given like a semester of nutrition in all their years of schooling. And I could be wrong about that. There might be some schools of medicine that are different, but it's generally not like a high priority in their schooling. And they also have the responsibility of just keeping clients on the straight and narrow when it comes to GI problems. So it's easier for them, and I think probably safer for them to be like, feed your dog this, nothing else. So you could see them not wanting to like, they have 20, 30 minutes, kind of like if you go to the doctor. It's ridiculous nowadays. I went to the doctor so many times this year with this molar pregnancy thing that we can get into. But I'd get like 5 minutes in the room with the doctor and we'd be talking serious stuff, like getting hardcore medication. That's like this type of medication called methotrexate. That's a chemotherapy drug. And I'm like, you got 5 minutes to talk to me about something this serious? This is alarming. So I understand like the vets don't have time to be like, okay, so you're going to want to get some spinach and, you're going to do this and oats. And so they don't necessarily have the time to educate. So I understand their side of things too. But I think people should be a little bit more aware of what their animals are eating and not so reliant on the kibble. Like the basic rule there for sure is definitely just like look at the bag, like the actual ingredients in the bag and know what's in it. Don't look at the front of the bag because it's very different than what might actually be in the food,
Where do those little tinned dog food cans rank on that scale? Better than kibble, worse?
I don't, I don't know if they're better or worse. I do get like one case of this certain brand delivered once a month from Amazon, like kind of out of convenience. It's got like it looks like kind of generic, like little meaty chunks and like little chunks, but it's like got gravy in it and it's decent ingredients. I'd use it like for stuffing Kongs. That's another one of my favorite things to recommend people do. So we talked about this last time, but I was like, we had our 3 hour. So, and I have so many new clients since last June. So that whole FFA thing that I talked about before is something I try to teach all my clients, whether they're doing private lessons or group classes. So food is the first one. So I'll talk about what are you feeding them, be aware of it, but also how are you feeding your dog? So that goes straight into not just nutrition, but keeping their mind busy. So feeding them like a slow feeding process is good for boredom, for separation anxiety. So separation anxiety is one of the worst things you could have for a dog. It's really hard to fix once it's there. It can just get worse and worse. We had a dog years ago, Spike, who had it, and it was all because we did everything wrong. We let him out of the crate too young, and we left him home for long periods of time during the day, and he got anxious. And when we came home and saw that he destroyed our stuff, we would get mad and scold him. And it just happened again and again, every day until I finally was just like, okay, I need to stop feeling guilty about crating him because this is what he needs to be in a crate, not running around the house being panicked. I'll tell people when your dog has less space to travel, they're forced to sit with their anxiety. And it's like us too. Like a lot of times people that are anxious are constantly moving. It's hard to sit with your anxiety and just like deal with it. But if you kind of have to force a dog to, otherwise, if they get into destroying your house and eating your couch and all kinds of crazy stuff like that, like that's not good. And scolding them doesn't work. So if you take the food bowl away, this is a good example of a person that's really good advice online for people that are always looking online for dog trainers. Dr. Ian Dunbar. He's a much older guy, but he's a vet, a behaviorist, and a dog trainer. He has a dog training business down in the Bay Area called Serious Pup. And I think his son and maybe even a daughter are working along with him now because he's in his 70s now. But his rule of thumb, just straight up, and I'll tell people that, and they're always like, ooh. I was like, dogs shouldn't even have a food bowl for the first year of their life. Just don't even get them one. And people are always like, I don't know if I could do that. And I'm like, I know, but don't free feed them, period. Just don't do that. I think that's a really bad idea. If you have an only child / dog, I could see how people could let their dog graze and they'll say, oh, he only eats once a day. And I'm like, yeah, but does the food like sit down all day? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, are you watching them all day? No. I'm like, they're grazing. And so some people, it may not be a big deal for them, but for people that have dogs with behavior problems, it's a really big deal. So when someone comes to me for advice on what to do, their dog's like digging and barking or being destructive or anxious, I'll say, well, how are you feeding them? So twice a day is kind of my like basic delineator. Breakfast and dinner, keep it consistent. Doesn't have to be exactly the same time, but like tonight, my dogs will probably be pissed when I get home because they're used to eating at like 4, but that's okay. Like they had some chicken at lunch with me, but they get 2 meals a day. Throw in a little bit of discipline, like make them get out of the kitchen and lay down and stay. It's literally like all you have to do to make them be mindful and aware when you're about to feed them, to be respectful. And then if you have dogs that are like high drive dogs, people that get hunting breed dogs or herding dogs, or dogs that are just looking for trouble around the house, or bugging their kids or other pets, give them food and something that's going to take them like half an hour to eat it. I saw this thing recently. It was by a veterinarian, and it was just a simple little thing. They said, you don't have to buy a bunch of fancy toys, which people love to do that anyways. But there's like snuffle mats now, which are funny. These things that have like all these little like feathery little pieces of fleece, and you tuck kibble in to all the little pieces, so your dog has to like roll around and like try to pick each piece of kibble out. I said, if you wouldn't want to spend any money, go and toss your dog's kibble out on the lawn. If you want to complain about spending money. And so there's that. And then the veterinarian said 20 minutes of foraging type eating, which is any of those things like Kong, snuffle mat, toys that you can like stuff the kibble into all these little ridges and pieces. This vet did like a towel thing and just took a dish towel. I could see some dogs this going really wrong with, but this was a sweet little like middle-aged dog. And they put kibbles in it and rolled it. And then they did it the opposite way. And then they did one more like that. And then they tied it in a knot. Like not super hard, but then they just like did a fast forward version of the dog eating it. And it took the dog about 25 minutes. And then they did a version of what the dog did after it ate. And the dog went and laid down, went to sleep. So that's a big thing for people. If they're looking for like one thing to change for a dog that has problems, put the food bowl away and feed them differently. Back to the canned food thing. So I go on these like tangents. Is like I get the canned food and I'll put that at the bottom of the Kong to stuff up the hole, and then I'll put kibble in it, and then I'll put more canned food on top. And that's like, for them, that's like dog heaven. And if I want my dogs to just have something to do when I leave, or if I feel like I haven't given them enough attention, or it's raining, that's a big one, especially for puppies that are active and they're driving their owner crazy. I'll say, just feed them like this at least once a day. I think some of my clients listen to me and take my advice. That's the problem sometimes, but it does make a big difference. So I think food's a big one. Then the other one's a freedom, and that's just how you give your dog freedom if it's too much or not enough. And so freedom's like, well, in some cases it's not a big deal. Some it is like, where does your dog sleep at night? And people always like cringe. And I'm like, don't necessarily think that it's a problem with me, because I have 2 little snoring Boston Terriers under the covers every night with me, but they don't have behavior problems. They're pretty stable-minded dogs. And it's like, but if I remember this client years ago, she was a single lady with a 2-year-old intact male Rottweiler, and she got a new boyfriend. That dog needed to not sleep on the bed anymore, because every time the boyfriend would come in and walk down the hallway, the dog would growl at him and try to chase him out of the bedroom. Like in your situation, that's a problem. Like your Roddy shouldn't be on the bed, like when you have a new boyfriend, because that's obviously gonna be a serious problem for that particular situation. But freedom too is people like in certain areas of Humboldt County, especially when I was traveling a lot more in the beginning of the business. I would see these major problems. So it's just an easier way for me to figure out where the problems are, because sometimes an hour and a half with somebody, you're listening to all the stuff they're saying, and I'm just like, I need like my brain is overloaded. Let's talk about food, freedom, and affection, and these will give me like simple ways to see where the problems are. So that's kind of how I brought it up. Freedom with people that live rurally was just the dogs running around all the time. Oh, we go on walks, but we don't need a leash. Like, well, why not? Well, because we live on 20 acres. We walk, but he's in 20, 30 feet ahead of me. That's a walk, but you're not enforcing the dog to listen to you. And I don't want to say like enforcing, but if you're making the dog heel and listen, and you're saying easy and heel and having them sit and do that, that's brain work, not just exercise. Like the analogy I use of like, well, if you could send your dog to the gym every day for an hour, and they're just going to become more physically fit. You know, if you throw the dog on the treadmill for an hour every day, guess what? After a month, they're going to need 2 hours of treadmill every day. And 3, they're going to take a quick nap and they're going to be ready to roll again, because all you did was exercise them from the neck down. And that's it. So the freedom thing, I think people need that more like slow, methodical walk. I had that class I talked about with the puppies, and everybody was like, their puppies are flying around all over the place. And I said, well, this is like your first walking class, so let's keep it simple in the beginning. I just had them pick a side of their body, and so I said, keep the dog there. And so some of the people, their dog would immediately pull, and they'd grab with the other hand, and they'd be having them all. I said, keep the dog there. So I just had people walk out and back and out and back and out and back. And they're like, well, this is really boring. And I'm like, that's the point. And then until your dog listens to you, like just go slow and walk back and forth. Sometimes like teaching leash manners isn't very fun, but they're never going to learn it if you let them pull you. See, I'll have people leave consults all the time, and they'll be all skeptical of my technique and this whole like, you know, not letting them sniff everything. Well, I thought walks were just for them. And I'm like, no, they're for you too. And if your dog is having problems, they should be mentally stimulated. They should be asked to be disciplined on the walk. They always like come back and say after the training session, or after like a week of doing this certain technique, they're like, you were totally right. My dog was exhausted. And it's exhausting the brain. It makes a really, really big difference. So that's like my big lectures on food and freedom. Like, you're better off having a dog that's you if you need to, you use a crate wisely. Not, you know, the rule of thumb is like maybe a few hours a couple times a day if you work a lot, but never like 6 to 8 hours at a time. At night is different. I think every puppy should be crate trained. I think that's a skill that in the future, like, you'll always have a dog that can go in a crate. So now, like, if I travel, Daisy, my big punk, I love her, but she's the rescue pit bull that I got, that she'll always have issues. She's almost 10. But if I travel with her and I need to stay with somebody, and I take the crate, she hops right in. She hasn't been in a crate in over a year, but when she sees a crate, she'll hop in it readily. So creating a puppy is important. It's like just like a life skill to teach them. It's like you wouldn't like have a baby and then not like have them be in a crib. You're like, they'll figure it out. Let them crawl around the house, and just, we'll see what happens. So the crate training thing I think is imperative too. Some people that don't do it, they definitely regret it. They end up having to go do it later, and then it's a lot harder to do. All of my dogs have been crate trained. So I think that's important too. You're better off with less freedom than more, I guess, is the point. And like how you dole it out. Freedom, like going to the dog park or running on the beach and things like that, should be like your once or twice a week fun zone thing, like for the dog to just have a great time. But they're better off going on disciplined walks. Like one thing I started doing this past month, just like helping with stress relief, and like stress relief for my dogs too, has been taking them on walks in the neighborhood. I stopped walking in the neighborhood for years. I would like take them, because we did so many dog classes, and I'd take them to the barn. Now the barn is like a muddy mess. And so I have not been taken in there, because then I'll just have muddy dogs, So I've been learning how to have them all 3 walk and not make me look like a jerk walking through my neighborhood. That's probably part of it. I'm like, I gotta look like I know what I'm doing if I'm the dog trainer in town.
Yeah, if somebody catches a video and your dogs are going crazy.
Yeah, and I'm yelling at them. I mean, they might catch me yelling at them every now and then. But if you're holding all these dogs in your hands too, like sometimes I have to use my feet. to organize them on one side or another. And it's just practice. Like when we first started practicing, they've all walked together before, but not consistently, like every other day at least now. So now it's like I feel like so good when I walk them, because when we're walking, they're just moving and we're just trucking. We can do like 4 miles easily around town, and it feels so good to just walk and get exercise and not have your dog like pulling and yanking and hurting you. Because I have a really bad neck, and like my shoulder gets all messed up all the time from that. I just did this like nerve test the other day, and I have like mild carpal tunnel in my left arm. And I'm like, oh, that's from dogs, because I'm almost always holding onto the leash in the left hand. But yeah, I'll use those Halties, like a gentle leader, a lot with dogs too. And like with my clients that have these huge dogs, especially older, like fragile women, they're miserable. And a lot of times people will stop walking their dog, or they'll go to that off-leash stuff because they're like, I can't do it. So the head collar thing, have you ever seen those? I'm sure you've seen like people walking around. It looks like a little horsey halter on their face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people still don't know what they are, but they're really common in my classes. I'd rather have a person like use that than a pinch collar. Pinch collars are, if I've had a small number of clients that were adamant about using it, and they use them very responsibly. They should be very snug around the dog's neck, and you should be giving small corrections.
Pinch collar is just the standard.
Yeah, it's
collar.
Like, well, like the ones with the like prongs all the way around it. It's a big metal collar, and it's literally prongs all the way around the entire dog's neck. So to me, it looks so archaic and barbaric. I'm just like, I had one experience using one years and years ago that was a plastic version that looked like a lot less, but it still had points all the way around. But it was this dog that we had for a while named Skip, and he was a lot. Something was not right with Skippy. Got him at Winco. Like someone picked him up from Winco. He had a broken leg, and he was obviously abused. And I think he was pit bull and bull terrier, which is a hell of a combo. And Skippy was like a lot to deal with. So I went to this pit bull convention. Bad Rap is like this pit bull rescue organization in the Bay Area, and I wanted to go to this thing. So I was huge into pit bull rescue. I worked for Shannon Miranda, volunteering for like 3 years. And so I handled a lot of the pit bulls there and trying to get them responsibly adopted out. And so that was one of their suggestions. I was like, I'll try it. And I walked out the door with Skip. For the first time, he was fine on it until he saw the neighbor's dog. And he lunged forward, and he hit that thing really quick, and he yiped, and then he looked at the dog and went nuts. And I just like had this light bulb moment and just turned around and went back in the house and took it off. Like for me, it was a light bulb moment. And not every dog's like that, but for reactivity or dog aggression, I saw right away. It was like, that just made him like yipe and then associate it with another dog. So it was a fast, like really fast realization for me that they weren't for me. And I don't recommend them for people. A lot of people don't want to have a head collar on their dog either. So I understand. It's like freedom of choice. But the head collar is like, for me being a horse lady, it just makes sense to me. It's like, put halters on horses all the time. Why not put one on your giant dog? I have this lady client whose puppy is like 4.5 months old, and he's humongous already. And so she finally got one. He hasn't even started kindergarten yet, and he's already like 65 pounds. And so she got one at the last class I did, and she was like, this is amazing. She's like, he doesn't like it, but I love it. And that's always kind of the thing, is the dogs, they don't like them. There's a lot of people that talk bad about them because they'll say like the dogs have so many nerve endings in their noses and that people can damage their necks and things like that. So I just try to educate people, like they're not for you to yank your dog's head around. They're for gentle pulling, and redirecting their face. It's like where the head goes, the rest has to follow, obviously, So it's a good tool. Like it's definitely something that a lot of clients end up using for a while until they get their dogs under control. So that's a good thing to have, like equipment wise. Sometimes is just really important. Harnesses are one of my least favorite things. So many people have their dogs in harnesses, and I like the front clip ones. They're to the front clip, but I usually say like nothing over 30 pounds, because like once they're 30 pounds a dog, you're still like hoisting all the weight of their whole body and their chest back versus just turning their head a little bit. So yep, a lot of people they'll be resistant. I think now what I see is all these, the word bougie again, these fancy pantsy harnesses and all these cool harnesses that people get, and they come to class and they're all stoked and their dog's like strutting in with this
blinged out.
Yep. And I'm always like, no. And they're like, but why not? I'm like, because it's not going to work for pulling. It's not going to be a good idea for pulling. So a lot of people end up converting after weeks of suffering and finally listening.
Finally waking up.
Yeah. And it's, I relate it. My newest thing now is relating it to, it works especially well for horse people. I just say, hey, it's like having different bits for a horse, or like a horse that needs spurs to get up and go versus what, a lazy horse. Or if you have like a horse that little kids ride and their little legs are up so high, and that horse is like an old nanny kind of horse, the horse is going to ignore the kid's attempts to kick. And it's not like you're putting spurs on the kid to hurt the horse. It's just going to give the horse a little bit of an extra nudge to go. And like horses should be growing out of certain bits and moving up and onward and getting something with a little bit more pressure or a little bit more length to it versus like a snaffle bit that's for, beginning horses where you're just teaching them the basics and you want to keep it really simple and gentle. So it's kind of like in my puppy classes, I just say in preschool, just bring them in a regular collar. You don't need to make it anything fancy. But then when they get to kindergarten, they're like little devils. I'm like, it's time for you to like step up your game. But yeah, I've started using that analogy. I just come up with this random stuff, like have these like little light bulb moments. I'm like, kind of like that with horses, and the horse people always like, okay,
Light bulb.
totally, yeah. So yeah, analogies help people. Like, was something I wanted to talk about was like, excuse me, learning how to finesse people. Like when you have a room full of, I had a really interesting group of people in one of my last classes. They were all very different. And sometimes when you have like a room full of really upbeat, like positive, like fun, happy people, but then there's like one or two people in the room that are not having a good time, and they've got like the stink eye and the grump look on their face, I'm always like, I'm put more focus and energy like mentally into keeping an eye on them. And I've had to like teach myself how to work with them instead of like, getting frustrated with the situation or even just putting energy into it. Like sometimes I just like to finesse and like kill it with kindness. And that's like the best part of the job is you're not just there for the dogs. That's actually the people that are harder to work with than the dogs. It'd be great if I just had everyone drop off their dogs. It'd be so easy. Like I get these jobs. I have a couple dogs right now. One's in Fortuna. Her name's Buffy. She's so cute. And she's like a doodle, Bernedoodle. Lots of doodles out there nowadays.
That's the popular breed right now.
Yeah, they're like, they're combos. And Buffy's got really, really, really elderly owners, and the mom, the wife, she's very, very fragile. And so they hired me to basically like, she asked me if I knew any dog walkers, and I just said I don't really know any that are reliable that I know personally that would maybe be able to come to your area, but you might consider me on like a little bit more of an investment. But I think eventually what would happen in that case is that you would have me training this dog to walk for you instead of just going for a walk. And so they've had me, they live like half a block away. So I like put in my headphones and go pick up Buffy, and she's so nice to walk. It's a real pleasure. So that for me is like, I'm almost like, am I really like being paid to do this right now? I almost feel selfish, where I know a lot of dog trainers, they do like the board and trains and those things where they specifically work with the dogs only. Working with the people and the dogs at the same time can sometimes be like painstaking, but it's the ticket. That's like what you should be doing. Like that's kind of where the money's not necessarily always there. Like you could do board and train business, and people that are desperate, they'll throw down like $5,000 to drop their dog off somewhere with the promise of a better dog in a month. But then, and there's also like, there's things lined up afterwards. Like if the places are usually not in Humboldt County, they'll do Zoom meetings and they'll do this, or they'll come back down to train the dog and learn how to do all the things. But a lot of times it falls through at, afterwards. And the problem with dogs is just like any other animal. As soon as they go back into the other environment or in the hands of the novice, they revert right back. There could probably be a number of things that I'm sure like a board and trainer could argue with me that no, for sure we can change this behavior, and I'm sure that they can, but it's just not really my thing. I'd rather like the hard road is like, I think is always, usually the hard road is the right road. And it is a lot harder to like wrangle a bunch of people and dogs at the same time. And then also to finesse the people that come to you for help, but they don't necessarily like, they're not receiving it that well. So it's kind of refreshing after I was like, gosh, I don't want to say, it's been a long time since I started this, to be able to not take things personal anymore or to be bothered or intimidated. For me, when I was in my 20s, it was really hard to work with men, grumpy men, or men that just were like having a hard time dealing with the dog and not being receptive to me. So sometimes I would just not know how to deal with them. So I would give them less energy. Now I make it a point to figure out how to communicate with them properly, and in just the way that the approach is makes people totally different. Certain people that are just they're in a bad mood, and they're just they're annoyed with the whole situation. So start things out with a compliment or, just this, or some people I just keep it real with them. What's going on today? What's up with you? And they're just huh? So yeah, the finessing it's an art skill that I'm always going to be getting better at, dealing with the people. The dogs are easier.
Well, people are 90% of it. But the magic in that is that you're helping these people because this is probably not going to be their first or their last dog.
Yeah.
And you're giving them the skills so that they can translate that down the road.
Yeah.
And it's not, oh man, I've got this problem dog, we fixed it, but then 15 years later, I got this other problem dog and now I'm back to square one.
You're educating them for lifetime. Yeah, it's an investment for them. And that's why you talk about the early investment, is that I just constantly would warn people that if you get a puppy, start training it immediately. Immediately. The day you bring it home, carry it into the pet store. Take it for car rides. You don't have to put it down on the ground and expose it to parvo to train it. Start with simple basics. Do a puppy preschool class. There's a little January 3rd at 6 p.m.
Little subtle plug.
The first 2024 class will be puppy preschool. That's my favorite class for so many reasons, because I know that the dogs that go in that class, they will be changed no matter what, even if it's not a profound change. But I've seen so many dogs, kind of like the one I talked about earlier. It's a night and day. And it's cool because those people usually at first they're frustrated or they're a little bummed. I can see them they're seeing all these other happy dogs running around. They're great. I got the dog growling in the corner or shaking under my chair. But then at the end, when their dog's playing and stuff, everybody's going over and being your dog is doing so amazing. And they're feeling really good about it, because they didn't give up and they started so young. There's something that a lot of people don't understand. That's why veterinarians should be giving them, and hopefully a lot of them are. I mean, I know most of the vets that I used to work for, I know that they always recommend me. They kind of know that they can put faith in what I'm doing and be go to Janna. Okay, go to her for this stuff now, and start the early socialization with an indoor class. So a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to do a dog class till they're fully vaccinated, but I go to great lengths to make sure the classroom's safe for them. And I organize that with the vets that I used to work for. So we do a no puppies orientation. Most people don't even know what parvovirus is. That's my number one concern, because parvoviruses can be lethal. And I've, knock on wood, never had it in a dog class. But part of that is they all have to come. It has up to a 7-day incubation period from when they contract it to when they show signs. So I make sure the orientation's 7 days before. And I don't let people generally add in last minute or anything like that. It's your dog needs to be with you in your home for at least 7 days after you have adopted it from a shelter or took it home from a breeder. And then I educate them about parvo. And then it's a dog-to-dog specific virus. So I always say, I'm just surprised sometimes, but I shouldn't be, how little people know. That's why they're coming to me. I had somebody be well, could a bird drop it in their poop from the sky into my backyard? And I was aw. I was no, they can't. But yeah, why not ask that question if you don't know? So that's good. It reminds me that this is my job, and I have to be thorough and make sure that they're well educated. And so I give them all their rules and regulations, and I do the whole you're all here for a reason. And if any of you are breaking the rules, taking your dog to the dog park or to the beach or, taking them on walks in the dirt and in public places, you're risking everybody else's puppy here. So it's always worked. And then everybody comes the next week, and we have 4 weeks in a row of the dogs getting at least 50% of on-leash training and learning how to socialize on leash. Because if you just do play groups and off leash play, then it's all just play. I get a lot of clients at dogs a year old that spent most of their time at the dog park and doggy daycare because they were maximizing playtime. Their dog's going nuts when they see another dog, and they're lunging and pulling on the leash, and they look like they're aggressive, but they're just throwing a hissy fit because they've never been taught how to coexist with other dogs on a leash. So I make sure that in all my classes that everybody's like able to start mastering like the art of teaching your dog to sit and look at you and saying, okay, before they get to greet another dog. I'll get these people in the puppy classes. They're so excited to see each other. They let their dogs, like they drag them up to other dogs to greet them. But if you do that with an older grumpy dog like Daisy, people will do that when people with puppies come to some of my walking classes that Daisy's used to doing. I'm like, nope. Because they'll be coming right up. I'm like, they're gonna get snapped at, and they're like, oh. And I think they just assume that because she's my dog that she's gonna be perfectly well trained. But not all dogs are into that. Not all dogs want to be approached by other dogs. And it's like you can't make every dog be social. So I think teaching them etiquette, like how to greet. It's not like if like a stranger walked up to you and was like, hey, and tried to hug you.
Yeah,
you'd be like, dude, back off.
That's one of those challenges. Is it's almost socially acceptable to go up to somebody's dog and say, oh, can I pet your dog, as you're trying to pet their dog, or have their dog sniff your dog. Like, okay.
Yeah, they're like adamant about it. Like it needs to happen.
Yeah. Oh, my dog's nice.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Oh, I love the off-leash dog barreling down on you as they're saying that. And that was one of the reasons, honestly, why I don't always like walking in the neighborhood, because you can run into those issues really easily when people aren't paying attention. And the other day I had like this little chihuahua come flying out at us, and I've got 3 dogs. Like my first objective is like just get Daisy behind me, because she'd be the one that would probably do something stupid. The Bostons are just barking and like they'll be fine. But the people were very apologetic. But you do have to be a little on guard sometimes when dogs come running at you. If you have a friendly dog, my suggestion, because people ask that all the time and they get really stressed out. Some people they actually have like some form of PTSD, or the dog does too, because they were actually attacked. A lot of dogs have been attacked by other dogs, like when they're on walks. So the owner will freak out. So then the dog freaks out. The dog's like, why is this such a big deal? So I've had many clients that have had to just like literally just try to train them how to be calm. If your dog's friendly and the dog coming towards you is like wagging their tail, just like relax your leash a little bit and just tell them it's okay. But like for some people, that's really hard to do. And so yeah, if it was just the Bostons, I would have just been like, fine. But I know that Daisy is capable of biting in the heat of the moment. So for her, I'm just like, nope. It's nice she has one of those gentle leaders on, so I can control her head. That's why I like those for big dogs and dogs that you need to control their mouth for safety sometimes. So yeah, but puppies need to get out there and do stuff ASAP. I have this really cool thing called the Perfect Puppy Planner, and my old boss, Dr. Ozanian, he got it from a conference he did at UC Davis. There was a dog behaviorist, and it has like a week by week all the things you should be doing with your puppy. So I give it to people, and it's a checklist of all kinds of stuff, like putting your dog on the counter, exposing them to loud sounds and noises, like even things like the lawnmower, or, sitting out front with them in your arms or in a chair, like while traffic goes by. All these random things people don't think about until they have a dog that's like has sound phobia or is terrified to walk down the street when cars go by and things like that. So it's not only socialization, it's exposure and desensitizing too. I remember when I got Levi, that's the youngest Boston, he was a big wuss. And so I get him home and I'm just like, I took him to the pet store for the first time, like 2 days after we got him. And he was terrified. Nothing was going on. He was just in a pet store. And you'd think like your puppy'd be all excited. He was not excited at all. He totally shut down.
Just overly stimulated.
Yep, he was shaking. We call him Leaf, shaking like a leaf. And he wouldn't take a treat. He didn't want to be petted by anybody. And so I just carried him around the place until his shaking stopped. And then I left. And then we went back the next day, and we went back the next day. And by the 4th day, he was sitting on the counter taking treats from the lady at the pet store at Main Street Feed in Fortuna. They're great there. It's a smaller store, but it's actually perfect because I'll take dogs in there all the time and I have to teach them like how to navigate through the store with all the like bully sticks and pig ears like sticking out of the shelves, and teach them how to leave it. And they're always so great. And Tractor Supply in Fortuna is really good about that too. You can take the dogs in and they'll give them a treat and they'll pet them and stuff like that. So pet stores are really good places to take your puppy because they're going to love that stuff, obviously. There's so many places you can get away with taking a puppy. Ace is really good about that. Like I've seen so many people with, if it's a cute, adorable little puppy, you could totally rock.
You can get by.
You can rock them through Safeway in your basket and no one's going to say anything. I mean, if you have a big aggressive dog, I don't think that's going to happen. But I just like tell people, do as much as you possibly can, and meeting and greeting other pets, other animals, things like that. Like, so that's all the most important things I think about puppies is if you're going to get a puppy, like we talked about this last time, the difference between puppies and rescue dogs. Rescue dogs are just older dogs that were once puppies that somebody made happen or accidentally were procreated and then became a rescue dog because somebody couldn't handle them. And it's usually because they weren't raised properly, got out of hand, or in some people, the big issue is choosing the wrong breed or breed type. Like even if it's a mixed breed dog, if you're fragile and you're elderly, don't get a huge dog because you want a big dog. It's that like, oh, I've always wanted a German Shepherd or that, it's like pick a dog that's going to complement your life. And make you and them happier because you could have a pretty miserable time with your dog. And that's a long time to be together. And it's be pretty heartbreaking. I've never done it, but actually I won't say that. First experience getting a pit bull my friend had down in Sacramento. She had the dog around the cats at her place. But when we brought her home and the environment changed and I think she settled in, she tried to kill our cats. And it was obvious that she wanted to kill a cat, not just chase a cat. And so it was horrible. We tried for 3 weeks to just try to get it worked out. She was great with our other dogs, but we had to send her back down to my friend and she ultimately had to send her back to the shelter. It was horrible. It was like a total fail of like our first pit bull rescue. And it was so heartbreaking and we didn't even barely know the dog, but that's a reason to not take on a rescue dog. And sometimes it doesn't work out. If they're going to hurt or kill your other pets, that's definitely not a good fit. But that's a sad thing about rescue dogs is they're a product of overbreeding, of irresponsible breeding, of like when people get sentimental that I've got a great dog, and I want puppies. I just tell people, like if my clients talk to me about it, I just say, you can do whatever you want, but just remember though, that if that dog makes 10 puppies, you have to find 10 people like you
that are going to take care of them,
that are going to take care of that dog for 10 years on average. So you just have to make sure that that's something that, you're going to be able to do. And I made some mistakes earlier on too. Like when I was a teenager, we had an Australian Shepherd and we bred her knowingly to a certain color type that you normally shouldn't because you can throw like deaf dogs. And she threw a deaf puppy. And it wasn't a horrible thing. We found the right owner for the puppy, but we did it even though we knew it was a risk. And so it was the only time I ever did anything like that. I was too young to really fully like grasp it at the time, but it stuck with me after it happened. I felt really bad because like we knew going into this was possible. And now, we have a dog that's deaf. And again, found a great home, but these are all the things that people should consider are happening. I'm seeing a lot of dogs that get overbred here in the county starting to have very specific, very, very specific issues. It's like French bulldogs are very, very popular right now in Humboldt. They have been for a while.
And crazy expensive.
Crazy expensive. Well, pit bulls were too. And like the blue pit bull, that was like in the back of every truck.
That was another wave.
Yeah, totally. And blue is not an original color of the breed. It never was with pit bulls. So when you breed in that color, what I saw at the vet clinic working there, tons of skin issues, skin problems, like crazy. So then like with French bulldogs, I'm just seeing like some of the earlier stages of it, but I'm seeing a lot of skin issues and aggression. So if you continue to breed certain dogs, you're going to keep getting the same traits and you're probably going to magnify them. They're going to get worse and worse. So I say like, because I go down both roads. I love to rescue animals. I have a new cat who's a year-old, Ragnar. He's something else. He's well named, but he's a wild maniac. But for me, I'm past the point of wanting to buy a purebred cat. I did that before in my earlier ages. There's so many great, amazing cats out there. So many cats. I actually found him when I was down taking care of my mom. So one of the times that I went down, she lives about 7 hours away. So I went down a few times. Ooh, got a cramp. A few times, not this year, but last year. And part of my stress relief was going into the pet store every day and looking at all the adoptable kittens. And I was like determined to bring one home. So finally on the last day, I don't know, I was like nervous about it. I was like, man, I don't know. They're not quite having it. I'm not sure. But then the last day I saw Ragnar and he had like a white paw and he stuck his little paw out the thing, was like flirting with me. And I was like, that's one. But yeah, rescue animals are, sometimes with dogs specifically, they can come with a lot of baggage. But puppies, you can create their baggage if you're not prepared to prevent it and work through the problems as they grow. And people come to classes all the time. We're like, he seemed great last week and now he's being a little devil this week. I'm like, that's because they age rapidly. We say like the first year of your dog's life is almost like 16 years in a kid. It's a rapid growing and changing. And then you take them to preschool and you give them confidence. And then you have to deal with their confidence and like rein that in. So there's always like growing pains when it comes to stuff like that. But I think people should just consider. I'd say my advice would be check out the shelters before. I've found some real amazing dogs, through the shelter system, especially when I was at Miranda's Rescue all the time. This is a little hard, but some real gems, some really amazing dogs just waiting for the right home. You do have to be prepared for some of their baggage. But a lot of that can be anxiety and insecurity and stuff like that. They can all be dealt with. I'll call it the honeymoon phase with rescue dogs, when people are like, he's great for the first few months, but then all of a sudden these things started popping out. I think that could just be like natural getting used to their new life and coming down off of the high and the stress of being in a shelter. And being in a shelter environment, it's like, they're in a shelter for reasons. Shelters are wonderful places, but it's dog prison for the dog. Doesn't mean that they're not doing the best they can. Those places are amazing and essential and wonderful, but that's how it is for the dog. Constant barking. Think about the cortisol stress levels and all the smells and the pee and the poop and not getting enough affection and attention, having scared and aggressive dogs right next to you, being in concrete, all that kind of stuff. And then moving into someone's home, and what a lot of people do is they lavish the dog with too much affection, that FFA theory. And so they are like, I just want to love this dog back. And then all of a sudden, like, too much affection can create imbalances in the dog too. So then I'll have to work with that person and be like, look, your dog's craving discipline now, and you can't just love them better. It's not going to work if you just try to love them back, to being a better dog. They actually like kids. You can't just love them like talking about bratty kids.
That doesn't turn out well.
No, it doesn't. So it's kind of the same thing with dogs. They're kind of like little kids, really. They're obviously different, but the approach to how you like raise them and stuff like that is very similar. I have a lot of parents that say that to me. They're like, this is like just like my toddler. I'm like, yep. Especially the positive reinforcement thing. I try to teach people to like, maybe don't like directly tackle the issue, like skirt around it, doing these types of things. They're like, that's like talking to a toddler. Like, you can't just be like, no, you can't. So it's like sometimes it's a bit of a negotiation process. So it's definitely like a finesse to teaching people how to deal with their dogs, and they're all so different. And if you have like a purebred dog, if you really want to get a purebred dog, I say don't do it on a whim. Really take the time, and you'll probably find if a dog breeder is really, really good, they're going to interview you more than you are them, and they're probably not going to just have a puppy right then. So like the lady we got the Bostons from, she breeds mostly to like preserve the heritage of the breed, the Boston Terrier breed. So everything she does is like impeccable to, what this breed should be like. Like Levi, we ended up getting him because he was just slightly off in a couple areas, which I was amazed. Like she said, his eyes are too almond shaped, and one of his feet was like just slightly too long. And I was like, wow, okay. And we paid a pretty penny for him, but for me, if it's a really good dog breeder, they're not making a lot of money because they're not rifling out tons of dogs every year. They might have 1 or 2 litters a year, and then they should be generally or maybe breeding a dog 3-4 times in their lifetime, and then they retire them. So
3, 4, that's all. Wow.
maybe 5, like if the dog's really good. But if you have to consider certain breeds, especially like Bostons and Frenchies, they almost always have to have C-section. So that's not good for a dog to be bred every year and be constantly having to have C-sections and stuff too. It takes a lot out of the dog too. You know, it's like they don't live as long as us, and imagine them having that many litters of puppies. It takes a lot out of their body. So yeah, those would be things I would look for if you like really wanted to have a purebred dog and feel good about what you're investing in. And do your research first. And I'm always amazed like how much people Google stuff, but please Google like border collie, and all the border collie experts would thank me for that, because a lot of people that I see, I'm just like, why did you do this? Because the dog is, you know, spinning circles around this person that's a sedentary owner. I'm like, you should have got an English bulldog, because they would have just been chilling next to you on the
Sitting
couch.
on the couch, yeah. Watching TV. The picking your breed is just completely overlooked.
It is.
It's, oh, I like the way this dog looks.
Yep.
So this is the dog I'm going to get.
It really is. Yeah. And it's not everybody, but it's
a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. I'm scratching my head a lot of times going, how did this happen? You know, like this is, and it was definitely because I've always wanted one.
I've always wanted a husky.
Or they picture, oh yeah. And I don't get a lot of huskies in classes, but like the people that have been successful with them and like other high energy dogs, they're very high energy people. They're always out doing stuff, and they're disciplined with the dog as well. So yeah, you got to keep up with the energy and be able to you know, deal with that. And you also have to be willing to put up with some like breed specific traits that you're maybe will never train out of the dog. It's like me accepting the fact that Daisy is always going to be a semi-dangerous dog till her last day. She'll probably be like all 15 and still like snappy and itchy.
Just because it's in the breed.
Yeah, it's in the breed. It's also in her like upbringing. How she was raised as a homeless guy's dog and stuff like that. For the first year of her life, she was taught to be defensive and you know, protective and all of that. So that's like ingrained in her. So it's a combination of breed, and then what do you do with that breed when you first get that puppy? And there's all these articles I've read over the years about that it actually starts when the puppy's like in the neonatal phase. Like if the mother's exposed to stress, like that, it starts then.
That makes sense. It's the same way with kids.
It totally is. So yeah, you start there. And then you also think about like the dogs that, how is the breeder raising the puppies before you get them? Like the breeders that have the dogs inside their home. I know not all like large breed dogs, like if they have a litter of 10 dogs or something like that, they're not going to necessarily have them in their living room. But yeah, when we went to pick up Rose and Levi, they were in a little X pen, like a little circular pen right in the middle of their living room. So the people's grandkids and their kids are coming and going all the time. The TV's on, they're eating dinner, they're in the kitchen cooking, they're doing all these things, and the puppies are exposed to all that motion, all that stuff going on. If they're outside and they're in a really quiet environment for the first 8 weeks of their life, those are usually the puppies that come to preschool at like 10 weeks of age, and they're really, really shy and nervous. And that might also just be, this is your dog's personality. And we're going to have to really work hard to make them more confident. But that's usually it's usually environmental and somewhat genetic as well. I think environment plays a huge part. And so people that get puppies when they're like 4 months and up too, and they're shy and nervous or whatever, I'm always a little bit more anxious about how are we going to turn this around now versus somebody that comes to me with their puppy that's 8 weeks old. I'm like, I think it'll be okay. Just don't stop coming to classes and don't stop doing all the things that I ask you to do. So it's dependent on a lot of things, but I think the most important thing is like be really aware of what you're choosing, because it'd be nice to enjoy your dog and them to enjoy you and that you're compatible. So it's like there should be a Tinder for dogs and people.
Well, you got to think you're picking a partner in a lot of ways.
They don't shouldn't even be shown certain types of dogs. You know what I mean? Like based on your profile.
You don't leave your house. You don't exercise.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna.
Here's the list of dogs you're allowed to get. Yeah, and I'm sure there's all kinds of quizzes and stuff like that. But when people are determined to get what they want to get, then that's what they're going to do. But a lot of times they end up suffering for it. And if you don't have a responsible breeder to say no, then there you go. A lot of breeders, they're not going to ask any questions. It's more, they're not necessarily as concerned about worrying about what's going to happen to that dog for its lifetime. So, I mean, a lot of the people won't even, like my breeder, we haven't fixed Levi. He's stayed intact. And so he's fine still. And he's handling his manhood okay for the most part. And I had a vet tell me that a lot of those little dogs have metabolic issues and end up having low thyroid and all that. She's like, if he does okay health-wise, she's like, I'd probably keep him intact, honestly. And so he's gotten away with it for longer than any other dog I've ever had. I've never had an intact male dog like for this long before. But yeah, like I guess that's like on that note, a lot of dogs over in Europe, they don't fix their dogs a lot of times.
That's what I don't understand is there's this huge push in the States, and I'm assuming it's just because of all the dogs that are in these kennels.
Overpopulation.
But it does change your dog, right? When you get them fixed, their personality changes.
Yeah, it does, and I think there might be a big health aspect to that. There's way more studies now about dogs and needing their hormones and the testosterone for growth.
Shocker.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and so if you can have responsible dog owners, then you can manage that better. So a lot of clients are telling me and asking me, "What do you think I should do?" The vet told me that it is better to wait, and I said it is better to wait. If you can wait it out, like it sucks with female dogs when they go into heat because it's 3 weeks long. It's not fun, especially when they're in your house. But like with Rose, she's a 20-pound dog. I waited a year. Like if it was a German Shepherd, Golden Retriever, Rottie, Doberman, Pit Bull, I would go like a year and a half to 2 years. There's a lot of studies for Goldens specifically that the hip dysplasia is more prominent in dogs that were fixed at a younger age. So I think times are changing in America as far as like better nutrition, better understanding, better education, things like that. But I think there's still like room for improvement.
Yeah. It seems like more people are willing to go down this path and actually invest external time into their dogs.
Yeah.
But there's still a big disconnect, especially when it comes to picking the breed.
Yeah.
And investing on the back end.
Selfishness a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's hard because you see these dog breeds and maybe you grew up as a kid, you always wanted that kind of dog, and then you become an adult and you have the money and you can do it, and you're like, this is the dog I'm going to get. Yeah. But you work 10 hours a day and you're not really home and you don't go for runs that you could take the dog on or walks.
Yeah,
you really want the dog.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and then they'll get it and then they'll be miserable.
And then you're shocked you have these problems. Yeah. Why is the dog tearing everything up in my house? I don't understand.
Yeah, and then they call me and I'm like, damn it.
You waited too long.
Yeah, and I have to
challenge.
Be careful with that, not to like, I'm always like telling people like, this can change, but you might also have to accept some things too. Keep working on making your dog better, but also don't be disappointed all the time and frustrated and mad at the dog all the time because they're not better. Like they can keep growing and getting better just like us. Like if someone doesn't want to change and they say no one changes and, none of us change, we all stay the same. I don't think that's true at all. You shouldn't be stuck like not changing. You should be trying to change. And I think like that whole like with age comes wisdom. You should be learning lessons and like getting smarter as you get older. Like that's part of the shift, I think, too. And so it's the same thing with like teaching your dogs that what you put into them, you're going to see the product of that the more time you spend. I love those clients that they're just like, I'm just going to keep coming and as long as I need to, and I love that evolution of change that I see over time. I just had this class, which I intend to do more often now. I lapsed on it a bit because of this whole health thing this year. I kind of got away with what I could do this year. It started in January and I thought I was pregnant. And then I thought I was having a miscarriage in February. And then by March, something was wrong. And so I went to the ER and they're like, you have a molar pregnancy. And I was like, what the heck is that? And it's like when just one side of the chromosomes, generally the male chromosomes, go in and divide cells in the woman's uterus. And it becomes a problem, obviously, very quickly. And your body thinks it's pregnant. So I had to have surgery. And then I had to have like all these checks all the time to see like what was going on with this pregnancy hormone in my body. It was like 600,000 or something like that. And like a fully pregnant woman is usually like 200,000. So I'm like, no wonder I feel like a crazy person. So, I mean, funny, but not funny. I was like months of watching those levels. And then eventually having to like even very reluctantly, because I'm very much into like the natural side of things and like going with Eastern medicine before Western medicine. But it gets scary when a doctor keeps telling you over and over, you really should do this, because there's a big thing about like if it comes back that the cells can turn cancerous very quickly and they can spread to other organs faster than you realize. And so then you start talking about that and I'm like, crap. So I was going through a lot of that like constant like stress and nervousness and fear, and then finally having to like sign up for these injections that were like kind of termed like not a big deal. It's just an intramuscular injection a couple of times a week, but it was a big deal. It made me really sick and made me feel terrible. And I really didn't want to do it, but I did it because I felt like that's like what the advice was over and over and over and told to me. But I kept working through it. I just didn't want to give up on working, but it got pretty stressful like a couple of times being like, well, I got to do this treatment today, like now. So I got to cancel class, for a week. So I just kind of did my 3 rotational classes. But like, as I started to get better, and actually I wasn't necessarily getting better. I got referred to UCSF. And so I went down there and he started talking to me about, well, we might have to be like switching to a new like type of chemotherapy where we do like a 2-type like approach and all this stuff. And I was just like, oh, this is getting gnarly. Like this is a total nightmare that will never end.
Is that what those injections were a type of chemotherapy? Yeah,
it's like called methotrexate. People use it for rheumatoid arthritis a lot of times. And so it's like a very necessary thing. It's not necessarily like gonna make you super sick, but it definitely made me not feel good at all.
Hard on your body.
Yeah, but I didn't like lose my hair and all that. It wasn't like having a port and having chemotherapy that way, but it's really, really hard on your body. That's kind of why I went into like the eating way better. I even did like a thing with, have you heard of diatomaceous earth?
Mm-mm.
It's like I was trying to remember how to word it. It's like the exoskeletons of like ancient sea crustaceans or something like that. So diatomaceous earth is, Tessa would probably know about this. It's really good for using with chickens. It's like when you put it in there, like in their the dirt where they dust and stuff, it can take care of like parasites. You can also put it in their food and it takes care of internal parasites. It's good for flea control. So what it does is it's like little tiny itty bitty little like crystals. It's not good if you breathe it in because it actually is harmful to your lungs. But putting it on an animal's skin or ingesting it isn't harmful. It'll only go after what it's trying to go after. I use it now all the time for my pets for flea prevention and on the carpet, but I did like a trial with it, ingesting it after all this stuff was done and trying to get all this stuff out of my body. I've been doing saunas. There's a new sauna place in Fortuna. It's really cool. And it's named Cosmic Roots. It's a friend of mine who opened it. I love going to the sauna, but like the Epsom salt baths, like if you're looking to detox. And then the diatomaceous earth was really interesting. And I noticed like a big shift when I started doing that. You did like 10 days on, 10 days off, 10 days on, 10 days off. And I started losing a lot more weight after that.
What is it?
It's a powder.
It's a powder.
Yeah,
what do they make it from?
And they make it from these like I said, these old like crustaceans off the sea floor. So
is it like a calcium?
It's like basically little exoskeletons.
Huh.
I know. It's crazy.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I haven't heard about that.
And then if you look it up, it'll talk. It's also silica based. So silica is actually really, really good for your body. It's like kind of like I think it's kind of like a form of collagen. And so I just noticed that I started feeling a lot better after I did it. And it's kind of like off the cuff, but I was like, I don't care, whatever. So you're supposed to do it for like 90 days every year. And I was like, I'll probably do it again. Like, why not? But back to the UCSF thing, when I went down there, he started giving me all these options. And then he's like, I just want to do a couple basic things just to make sure that we're not like missing anything. And so I remember like leaving and driving back to my aunt and uncle's in Santa Rosa. And I was like kind of waiting for his phone call. And he called and he's like, I can't believe it. He's like, I was shocked. And I was like, what? He's like, your like pregnancy hormone levels were the same, but I did like a urine test for pregnancy and it was negative. And I was like, so what does that mean? He said, you have this thing called phantom HCG. And I was like, well, what is that? And he's like, it's complicated, but it basically means you have like a low level of pregnancy hormone in your system. And he couldn't quite answer the question because I think it's hard for them to answer, but I was like, could that be something that can, like, a woman can hang on to that from like having a miscarriage? Because I had 2 in 2021. He wasn't too sure on his answer on that. But like, I remember when we got off the phone, I looked it up and the first thing it said was like, phantom HCG is oftentimes leads to misdiagnosis and inappropriate treatments of chemotherapy. And I was just like, and so not to look back and think like, this was all like not done correctly or anything like that. He even said like any doctor in this situation and all that would have done things the same way and all that. But I was so grateful for this doctor at UCSF, like one visit down there. And so one of the things I heard from a lot of people over the years, even since I moved here, is like, get a referral, get a referral. Get a referral, like anytime something's wrong. And that was like hugely impactful for me because I haven't had to have single treatment since then. No treatments. Like it's just slowly gone down. Now it's almost to 0. So everything's getting back to normal. And so, yeah, I got a lot healthier after all of that crap ended. So as soon as I started feeling better, I started scheduling more classes and stuff. And like the canine college was the one I hadn't done for so long. So I had about 4 people that were interested at first. I ended up with 15 people. And it was such a cool class because everybody but one person who had just done some private lessons with me had been doing classes for years. And so to do this like high level, it was like having college students that were super intelligent and like very focused and so polite and like had etiquette. It was just like such a breath of fresh air. It was so different than the puppy classes. Nothing against the puppies, but they're chaos, like incarnate. And then all these college dogs were puppies at one time. So it was really a cool experience to work with all these people that were just amazing dog owners. And you could see that just on how all these dogs acted. We're in this big building together and they're all just walking around healing, being calm and quiet, not one reactive dog in the whole group. It was amazing. And so like my motivation now is to try to offer the college course like in between each elementary to just keep motivating people to like keep going up, because that's kind of why I called it an academy. It's like that your dog's education doesn't need to stop after one class, one
continuing process.
Yeah, it definitely is. And those guys proved that to me. And it was pretty awesome. Like I was like pretty teary-eyed at times, like just being like, damn, I love these guys. This is a product of like all their hard work, but also them like trusting me.
Yeah, validating in a lot of ways because you get to see the results of your work. It was
validating, and I told them that. And unfortunately, we only ended up with like 9 on graduation day. But it was funny if you looked at my social media page and seeing, because I graduated like 4 classes in 1 week. It was like right before last week before staycation. And their picture is like perfect. Like everyone's just like lined up, all studious. The dogs are looking straight at the camera. And then like you see some of the other pictures and the puppies are dragging their owners all over the place. And it was a really cool experience to do that with them. So that's one of my things. Like I always am trying to make up new things. It's probably Ragnar hair in my mouth. But I think the canine college thing is just going to be something that I really focus a lot more of my efforts on. I do like to be available for private lessons, but it's extremely time consuming. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how I could make that easier to get to people. Maybe there is some internet-based like way of doing that, because I get inquiries all the time. Sometimes I'm too expensive or my work hours don't fit in with people. And so I don't know, there might be some solutions to that. But the classes are really what I love. I love it all. But I feel like the investment and the people that keep coming back are the most fun to work with. And I love seeing that evolution of change in the dogs and the people. If they keep coming back to you, they're going to keep learning stuff. And they'll hear things sometimes and be like, I remember you saying this, but it never stuck. Like now it took me like a year, but it finally stuck. So I'm always like, just keep coming back because you'll keep learning things, So hopefully this next year there will be, and January is always a big month for me. It's like slow right now, but then as soon as Christmas is over, all of a sudden like all my classes usually book up.
Is that the influx of like, Christmas dogs?
Well, it's that, and like all of a sudden everyone's like focused on life again and their dog. And so I offer preschool, kindergarten, and elementary all in January. So I'll start fresh with all those 3 classes again. And they usually fill up pretty quick. A lot of people too, like they don't have much to do in the wintertime, so it's like something to do.
Well, things get a little squirrely around the holidays.
Yeah, I think people kind of put down a lot of their other priorities. People travel and stuff too, which I'm not much of a fan of leaving Humboldt in the winter. Like, oh, today is like the reunion, not the reunion, but a year since the big earthquake.
Is it really today?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was down in Rio Dell last night too, and like a friend when I mentioned it, like reminded me that it was today. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, did you feel it up here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most people in Eureka did.
Yeah, it shook pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. I remember the one on like New Year's Day too. I was just like, seriously again? My biggest concern is there's a big, like huge 55-gallon fish tank in the living room. And I'm always like,
yeah, you don't want to lose that.
No, it's the first place I go and look because I'm like, please. It sloshed a good amount of water out all over the place, but it didn't break at least. So that's good. But yeah, these earthquakes, I've had about enough of them.
Yeah. Wow. I haven't thought about that in a while. It's weird that was that long ago.
I know. Yeah.
And our previous podcast was even longer over the summer.
June. Yeah. Yeah. And that was like I said, like a month before my mom got sick. So yeah, I feel like the last year and a half has been kind of gnarly.
Just a whirlwind.
Yeah, definitely a whirlwind. I'm hoping 2024 is going to be better.
I wish I could say that I think it is going to be, but I think this is the start of us walking off the cliff, and it's going to get more hectic.
I don't like that.
I know.
I don't like that perspective. I don't know. I think we all thought that 2023 was going to be a lot better, and I think that was disheartening for a lot of people. I mean, at least that's how I felt. It's like, COVID's over. It's going to be better. But then I think people were so shell-shocked from COVID and then had a lot of other things that ended up happening too, like just my things. Like when you're only dealing with that, that's hard enough. But then dealing with the aftermath of like everything that just happened to us for those couple of years was pretty intense too. So I know a lot of people that are just really, really, really stressed out. And so I do hope it's going to be a better year. But I know it's that whole New Year's resolution thing. It's going to, that's just because a new year rolls over doesn't mean things are going to be better, but maybe it's all in the perspective, right?
Yeah, I think if you stay offline, it'll be better. I think you've got that going for you.
Yeah. Except for the Sprout videos.
But that's just putting out good energy. That's uplifting people.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. So
I think the YouTube videos could be a great avenue for that. Or even if you set up a Patreon thing and just, I don't know, set some price, but then filmed your classes and it was like a program that they could work through by watching the videos.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
If they can't make it, that might be an avenue.
That'd be nice for people that can't make it like the night of class too. Again, I know like in the veterans building with the acoustics in there, like how something like that would work, but I need to educate myself on the technological side of life. I'm lacking in that department. So
it's a rabbit hole you can go down.
Yeah.
But I think that would be, or even if they took the class and then wanted like a refresher, they could go back, watch the video.
Yeah, or people that just can't
make it. A lot
of people still don't necessarily want to do group stuff after COVID, which I know
really
is weird. But I mean, I had a harder time with it in the beginning. People were just like seriously having like anxiety issues. From COVID and would like drop out of the class after the first week, and they'd email me or call me and be like, I just can't do it. Like I'm too anxious in that group setting. That made me really sad. It's like, should be a fun thing and be excited about it. But a lot of people were still relying on the masks like to protect them. So they didn't want to be in an environment, with other people that weren't wearing masks, So, and I saw a lot of the like anxiety in dogs too, from not being properly like walked and disciplined and all of that too. People were really emotional. And then when you get really emotional people, dogs take a lot of that on. I've learned that with my dogs just with this year. And like, cause I'm usually a pretty calm person. I mean, I'm like a high energy, high drive person, but I'm pretty calm and assertive with my dogs, as Cesar Millan would say, calm and assertive. But, just being, dogs are very intuitive. So a lot of the people that I talk to that you kind of have to gently ask the question, like, what might be going on with you? Because I'm having a hard time figuring out why your dog's doing this. And a lot of times people will be honest with me, it does come back to them and their dog's having some sort of weird reaction to the way that they're feeling or something that's going on in their life. That's a tough thing to navigate, especially when it's like a couple, and like one person's there with a dog. So I'll just have to make like basic suggestions on how to like approach their partner or lead by example. Like, okay, if you literally have no other ability to convince this person of what it is that you're trying to do, lead by example. And they'll be like, well, what do you mean? I'll say, well, start walking the dog every morning at 9 a.m. You know, get the crate out and just start doing it again. And if they're going to talk about it or say anything, just keep doing it. It doesn't matter. You know, just take on a responsibility and do it. And if they don't want to get on board with it, then they don't. But relationships and dogs can be a tough one because sometimes people have totally different opinions about the way things should be. Or one person does all the work and the other one doesn't.
That happens a lot.
But they have a big opinion about what's going on with the dog. It's like, well, that's an issue as well. But I like it when the younger generation, and I'll say too, it's funny the difference now, like with a lot of people, I can't do the whole generational thing anymore. I feel like maybe it's just the effects of doing it for so long, is that it's a lot more like of a friendly environment in my classes now where I see like whole families come, like couples coming together and people like where when I was doing this, when I was younger, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just evolution of people. I think some of it's younger people not having kids now and really investing in their dogs a lot more. There's that aspect of it too, you know, and they're not starting families. They're having dogs. There's the older generation retiring and just enjoying like, you know, working with their dog together. And then there's some aspect of, I think, with age and wisdom of getting respect from people that maybe I didn't necessarily when I was younger. So I don't know. It's evolved. Like, it's really nice because I feel like my job is easier because people trust me more. And I think honestly, really, that I just thought about, the bottom line is like when you live in a small community like this, reputation and word of mouth is what you got to rely on. So I've had people say, well, you could move and you could pick this up and do this, you know, anywhere else. I said, well, not necessarily. Not when it's like the way that I do things in a tangible, like, you know, in-person manner. I've worked really hard for a long time to have a good reputation. So that's something that comes with time. You can't just move and pick that up, especially in a small community where people are like, who's that? You know? So I definitely fully intend to stay in Humboldt and can keep things going. That's for sure.
Yeah, the reputation aspect is huge.
Yeah. It is.
If you can build a solid reputation, then you're the go-to.
Yeah.
And people understand, okay, this person, she knows what she's talking about. Yeah. She's got the catalog of work that shows she is who she says she is.
Yeah. Well, the word of mouth is just like when people talk about it, it's like it's more trusted than if you just like look somebody up online, I think.
And read a Yelp review.
Yelp. I hate Yelp. Did we talk about that last time? They're so...
Not a fan.
Fraudulent and horrible.
Do people still look at Yelp?
I hope not. Because what Yelp does is they take your worst reviews and they put them at the top and they embed a majority of your good reviews in the gray zone where most people don't even see and don't even click on it to be able to find them. And then guess what they do? They start calling your business and trying to coerce you into paying them to get more likes and to get more generation on their page and all of that.
Has this happened to you?
Oh yeah. Like it got to the point where I had a lady that was assisting me for a while that I got so pissed off about it that I finally had her call him. And because I talked to them multiple times about it, was just like, I'm not interested in paying you anything. It was pricey too. It's like, I don't even know what it was, but it was not cheap. I was like, I'm not interested in paying you anything. I'm not going to do that. Because I had like one bad review on Yelp and it really pissed me off because it was very thorough and descriptive. And I was like, man, and that's the stuff that hurts your feelings really bad. Like, I'm very sensitive. So like seeing that, I was just like, I was really hurt by it. And then there was some other one on like the Yellow Pages like thing. It was like, but some of it's like laughable, but when people do that kind of stuff, I really don't like to leave bad reviews online because I know how much it hurts. Like for me, like it hurts really bad for people to get that. I like to give positive feedback. Or what I'll try to do is like actually like have the guts to like tell that person like directly. Like this lawyer that I talked to. I was just like, I was just very honest with him to his face. Like, I could have gone on Yelp or on the internet and been like, this guy's a fraud. But I was like, I just told him how I felt about the situation, like right then and there. I'd rather do that if it's negative, if I want to speak up about it. I think the whole internet bad. I mean, we talked about this in a number of things. I just don't like it at all. I think it's mean. The internet bullying thing. I can't even imagine what kids go through. Like all the different forms of communication that kids have nowadays in Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and all the ways that you can imagine that, they're just, I don't know. The internet's it's a scary place sometimes for sure.
I'm trying to think of what it would take for me to actually go on to Yelp and leave a bad review for someone. Something would have to go chaotically wrong.
Like to where you're really, really pissed off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't. They're like very crass about it and just like, well, my pot stickers weren't crunchy enough.
I didn't like the vibe when I got in there.
And my waitress didn't give me enough water refills, or it's like, seriously, you have enough time to do this? I think it's just people being empowered by having a platform for their opinion, I guess, too, which I guess that's their right. But I would always be reminded, I think one thing I learned this year that was really valuable and was extremely refreshing was that it's like a very eye-opening experience about like my whole experience in the year and all the stress that I had went through. And when I would talk to people just a little bit here and there about it, and they'd share situations or stories, I just kind of had another one of those light bulb moments of like, most of the time when someone's being rude to you or someone doesn't come around or someone disappoints you or someone hurts your feelings or whatever happens or whatever you're thinking in your mind is happening, probably isn't. And we always worry about what's going on with somebody else, but sometimes we don't know what someone's going through. So I don't know, I just had this like realization suddenly of like, don't take it personal. And like the more you actually like talk to people and communicate with them, because I started opening up to the clients more and more about stuff, because I'd rather be transparent and have them know like why I might be a little off my game or I had to cancel class or whatever, and the love and the like the return of like affection and like support is like profound and overwhelming in a really positive way. Like brings me to tears because there's some really cool people here. And I think the more that you reach out to people and you're honest with people, then you get that back. It's pretty cool. And I think a lot of people suffer and not talk about what they're going through. So I don't know. For me, I'm just a very open, honest, like very outward person. Sometimes I try not to be, but it's never usually like the right way to go. So I've been very humbled by like the kindness and the support of the community. That's why I like love the whole local support thing so much. Like this is a Sunny Wong shirt. You know Sunny Wong?
I don't.
No, he's a cool like local artist. You should check him out. He has artwork up all over Eureka. He has quite a few really cool things. And then this is a Labradorite pendant by this gal named Bianca. It's called Two Trees Handmade. And she does amazing work. I have a leather purse that she made from scratch. It took her I think at least 24, 25 hours, like doing the entire thing from scratch. And so I like look around for all like the local support thing. And I think the more that you focus on that, if you have not everybody has a job that you're supporting locally, obviously, but mine 100% relies on that. If I didn't have the community backing me, I wouldn't be doing so good, So that's what I love the most about my job. And so I'm going to keep that going for sure.
Well, I think it provides a great resource. I think the ability for people to go out there and get this training and feed off your expertise, it not just helps them create a better situation with their dog, it helps their life because then they don't have this chaotic stress every time they get home.
Yeah.
And they're dealing with this dog that's losing its mind because they don't know how to take care of it.
Yeah, and everyone's miserable.
And everybody's miserable.
Instead of having a good time. Yeah, because dogs should be fun and they should be like stress relievers, not.
Which is the whole reason why people get dogs.
It is, yeah, but sometimes we have like too high expectations without putting in the work, Yeah, I had a lady, Buffy's mom, actually, she said something to me the other day about how lucky that Fortuna in specific was to have me. And she said, you can just see it around town now. She's like, I've seen it over time. She's like, I see all the people walking their dogs and the way they're walking them and the terms they're using and the things they're doing. She's like, I know that they've been to you. And she's like, you can see the difference in the dogs like in our community versus others and how nice it is to just like go to the park Everyone's being respectful. There's not dogs running around like off leash and dog fights and like and you just see people having well trained dogs. And that was really cool to hear that, like to see to feel like people were, felt like it was making a big change. So it's definitely the goal, like is to help people, and it's not just Fortuna people, obviously, but that Fortuna is a pretty cool like town for dog people. It's like when people come there for training and stuff, they're always surprised. It's sunny Fortuna. There's something to it. Like especially up here in Eureka, it'll be foggy up here, but you'll come to Fortuna, it's sunny. But we have 2 really, really beautiful parks down there that I do a lot of my training at too, aside from the Veterans Building where I do my indoor classes. And the parks are really nice places to walk your dog and stuff. So it's nice to have respectful people walking their dogs. Nothing that I hate more than when I try to go somewhere where there's like leash laws and stuff and there's loose dogs, and there shouldn't be loose. There's people that have dogs off leash and they're minding them, but it's a pretty small percentage.
Yeah, that's a rare sight to see. Normally when the dog's off leash, it's a dog that has no training.
Yeah,
It's just running rampant.
And you can go to certain towns in Humboldt County and you can see the difference, or certain places, like the difference between going to the Arcata Marsh and the Arcata Community Forest is going to be huge. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, like go to the Arcata Marsh if you want to have a calm stroll with your dog on leash with rules and people that respect them. Go to the Community Forest if you want a bit of chaos and mayhem, and dogs potentially running down the hill after you on trails and having someone yelling like, he's friendly. So there's certain areas I don't really take like my dog classes to anymore like I used to, just because of some of those risks. But at least there's a lot of places that people are very good about that. The one bummer about Humboldt, which I understand why, is because there are irresponsible dog owners. But if you go from like Scotia to Trinidad, pretty much everything's going to be dog friendly aside from a few places. Like there's a couple trails in like the Hooked and Slough and stuff like that, where they're like bird watching trails and stuff like that are all dog friendly. But if you go like north of Trinidad up to the border, all those amazing trails up there, no dogs. And then you go down into the Humboldt Redwoods, along the Avenue of the Giants, no dogs. And so that can be kind of frustrating because there's so much beautiful like places to hike and to see, but a lot of those places are not dog friendly. I wish they would be a little more lenient, or maybe change some of those laws or open up a few of those trails to dog people that were responsible. I can understand it. But yeah, for me, like doing my hiking classes and stuff, which I love doing that one, we have a pretty like narrow area. I mean, there's plenty of places to go, but Humboldt's a really big county and there's a ton of trails, and I can't like take people on a trail that's like not dog friendly with like 12 dogs traipsing around.
Why are they not dog friendly in some of these parks?
I think it's the responsibility, the dog poop, like just people just being
irresponsible.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so it can ruin it, I think, for people. And there's also like certain laws and things. Like for example, I got to the South Jetty a lot, like you go out like Lolita, if you'd go out Hookton Road from Eureka all the way out to the beach, the South Jetty like runs down along that line there. And I go out there because it's a great place to go that's pretty isolated, especially during the weekdays. And but like from April to September, you're not supposed to let your dogs off leash because of the snowy plover season. Because these little guys lay their eggs right out on the beach with no cover around them. But the crazy thing is people can ride horses, which I don't think that's a big deal. But then what's up with the ATVs and the side-by-sides and the Jeeps and stuff like rolling down the beach? But
yeah, nobody's watching out for anything on those.
No. And I know if I ever do go, I'm usually pretty respectful. I'll have the dogs leashed. And if I get all the way out to the water, I'll let them off for a few minutes, put back on. But I do love like September to April because it's the season changes. It's not their hatching season anymore. But I heard from a client, I was wondering, because I will usually go on a weekday like early so I don't run into anybody. And this guy said, yeah, I went out there, I was out there on a weekend and some guy came barreling down the beach on an ATV and he ticketed him for his dog being off of a leash. And he even had the argument with him about the ATV thing. He's like, this is ridiculous. This doesn't make any sense. So they'll be serious about it. So I think some of the places in Humboldt, it's about the wildlife. which I respect that. But yeah, the whole ATV thing.
Yeah, kind of a double standard there.
And I think it's a little bit potentially more damaging, but I don't know. It seems kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. The cognitive disconnect there is a little interesting.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like blurred lines there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could like you could say the dogs would sniff out a nest of eggs or something like that and eat them. I'm not sure, but it's just kind of funny. So yeah, I respect the laws. I wish we could have a little bit more leniency, especially like I love all those trails down the Avenue of the Giants, and like to me, I wouldn't want to go hiking unless I was going with my dog. So it would be weird for me to like go on a hike by myself. So I'm sure there's plenty of people that probably appreciate going on those trails and not having dogs on them. But for me, I'm like, darn it.
Well, no, I think as we move more towards people training their dogs and having responsible dog ownership, maybe some of that will start to shift.
Yeah. It might take pushing and asking and
people
pushing.
lobbying for it. And
I'm all, it might be a thought. It probably won't happen, but yeah, there's a lot of beauty in Humboldt County that I think it would be nice if people had more places to walk their dogs. But there's plenty of places. And there's a lot of beaches. One of my favorite ones I started going to a lot more this year is Stinky Beach, which is such a terrible like term. Do you know where that one is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we park at the Park and Ride at Herrick. And we'll walk the dogs out there like down. Well, they just paved that whole area. It was kind of cooler before because it's kind of like off the beaten track, and you went over the railroad tracks and over the bridge where the Elk River runs through. But it's all paved now, which is fine. But there's all this like bicycle traffic and like other people walking along it, so it's more convenient. But I kind of like the rusticness of it. But that's a really cool beach. So a lot of times there's not a lot of people out there. And one I haven't done in a while, which is a trip I should probably just like go check it out sometime. Not now, but like in the springtime when things is the Lolita Tunnel Trail. And so it's like a mile hike or so down the railroad tracks, like right in the middle of Lolita, which is tiny. There's just a gravel parking area, and it says Lolita Tunnel Trail, and it's pretty bushy. Sometimes it's really bushy. And it gets to this railroad tunnel. And so they actually blocked it off the last time I took a group of people there. Luckily, they were ballsy enough that we squeezed and climbed and pushed our way through the barricade, because part of the land is like runs across cattle land, like private cattle land. They luckily let people walk the trail, but I think the cattle were going into the tunnel, so they're getting into trouble.
So they blocked it off.
But I've got some pretty cool like hikes and pictures and videos of us actually like walking through the tunnel, and it's pretty creepy, but it's really cool because of all the graffiti and stuff that people do in the tunnel and stuff. So I take the dogs and the people out there, and we'll take flashlights and like check it out. That's a pretty cool one to go to if you ever have a chance to.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That's what I used to love about Devil's Playground was the artwork that people put up.
Yeah. I'm into graffiti for sure. Yeah. I mean, some of it's pretty impressive. And the tunnel's pretty creepy. It doesn't look very long, but once you get in there, you're like, oh shit. Yeah. And I've never made it to the end. I think that the last like third of it is pretty much always underwater. In the wintertime, it's probably not a good idea. It's probably pretty mushy, and be ready to like do some bushwhacking. But I think someone clears it out in the springtime. But that one I haven't been able to do in a while, but it's a cool one. Yeah, it's kind of adventurous and fun. So that would be a really rad one to check out. Get some ice cream from the Foggy Bottom Boys.
Go for a little hike.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, well, Janna, thanks for doing this. I got to get out of here. It's already...
We did it again.
6:15. We did some time.
We did it again.
Do you want to plug all your stuff where people can find the Academy, find you?
Yeah, sure. Redwood Coast Canine Academy. Looking for like just feedback and social stuff and all the fun stuff would be like my Instagram page is Redwood Coast Canine. Facebook's Redwood Coast Canine Academy. Your best bet for signing up for a class, guys, is just get on the website, fill out a registration form, and pay for your class. People always do the registration form, but a lot of times they don't pay in time. And that's how you get. That's how you get in. It's very straightforward and clear about which ones to sign up for. Puppy preschool starts January 3rd at 6 p.m. That's for the youngest pups. Puppy kindergarten is going to be January 17th at 7:15 p.m. And then we've got Canine Elementary for the adult dogs. Anything about 8 to 10 months and up, whether they're experienced or not, is going to be Tuesday, January 9th at 6 p.m. Everything's done at the Fortuna Veterans Building. Come springtime, I take my Canine Elementary class outdoors, and we do a nice variety of stuff, hiking, walking, working for play and all that. So that's always really exciting. And then Canine College will be in the rotation in 2024 for sure. So yeah.
Be on the lookout for that.
Definitely. That's a really good one. For those people that are wanting to stick it out and really put in the work. Now that's like the 4th level of the academy. So that'll be exciting to see more of those. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I knew it was going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it was.
And more sake.
Yeah. The sake was great.
It was good. It's a good one. Yeah.
I'll put a little plug in there for people to see what kind it was. It was good. It was good. I really liked it.
Little Japan. They're amazing. Yeah. And they go over there to Japan for a lot of their stuff. It's very high quality stuff. That's a really cool store. They're always very accommodating too. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Janna, this was great.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.